Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another epic round of intense racing action in the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 1, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, what a round we have got in store for today, because today marks round number 8 of 10. We are nearing the conclusion of the inaugural season of our GTE Championship, and we have made our way all the way over to Brazil for the Interlagos Grand Prix circuit. Known in full as the Autodromo José Carlos Pache in reference to the infamous Brazilian Formula 1 driver, this circuit is one that is absolutely steeped in motorsporting legend, and indeed it is no question as to why we've included it on the calendar and why it's on any calendar for any major international championship. Where it be Formula 1 all the way through to the World Endurance Championship, it is a circuit that's a mainstay, and with its 15-corner 2.67-mile layout that runs in an anti-clockwise direction, contradictory to most circuits in the world that run clockwise, well, already this circuit sounds enticing. But when you look deeper into the detail, you can absolutely understand why. Located on the hillside of the Interlagos region of São Paulo city, the neighbourhood situated between two lakes which it gives its name to, given its location, well, this is one of those circuits which weaves and winds its way on through the terrain, and therefore it's full of elevation change and an eclectic mix of corners. Some are absolutely flat, some are downhill, some of them uphill, some on camber, some off camber. Add it all together, plus the fact you've got low, medium and high speed corners, there's something for everybody here, and it just goes to show you that sometimes you don't need a long circuit in order to be able to make it one of the ultimate endurance circuits. You just need to have the perfect combination and make it more than the sum of its parts, and that's exactly what this Brazilian circuit is all about. And will we see some epic moments today? Could we potentially see our own equivalent of the Is That Glock moment? The infamous moment, of course, which did result in Lewis Hamilton taking his maiden Formula 1 crown all the way back in 2008? Or could we see something even more spectacular? Well, that's what we're here to find out today, as our drivers get set for the second and final one of our endurance race rounds. 90 minutes of racing await us today, not your typical 60 minutes. And this is going to feel as though it'll be a grueling test of ability, which our drivers will all need to overcome, whether they be in the elite, pro or inter classes. But hold up a second, I've forgotten my manners. Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, as we welcome you today on the one and only place we can catch all this racing action on a weekly basis is, of course, on the SimRacing International YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for SRI or SimRacing International, and you'll be catching all the racing from the GTE Championship on that weekly basis, running every Friday. And indeed, we always do have a good shout out and hello to a number of you in the YouTube chat. And if you're sat there right now feeling a little bit shy, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. There's no pressure on you, however, but no, we'll never bite here at SimRacing International. The only biting you'll see, or hopefully we won't see, is the bite in the brakes, and therefore lockups for our drives because they have no ABS on their GTEs. But we do say hello there to Kitty's Mad in the YouTube chat, and well, I'm doing very well, thank you, Kitties. And how could I not be well? It's Friday evening once again. Yes, the weekend's tomorrow, that's absolutely brilliant, but the thing that I don't sleep for is the GTE Championship here indeed. We're all big fans of GTEs at SimRacing International, and I'm absolutely excited for tonight, and I hope you're all set as well and ready to cheer on both Craig Tillotson and also Kevin Smith, who will be racing for the Ravana Academy team. But as all the drives get set, of course, and as we make our way into this round, well, we need to recap the story so far and what's lying in wait as we come into round number 8. And without further ado, let's not keep you waiting any further. Let's bring you up to speed. So as we can see, last time out on the 13th of February, we were in France at the 24-hour Le Mans circuit. The circuit says 24-hour Le Mans as it's known in full. And what exactly did it deliver there for a 60-minute race? Well, it delivered drama, no doubt about it. And one of the most spectacular start line incidents that we have seen in the history of this series, including none other than Callum Lux and his teammate Julian Eichenlaub, where it was a spin for Callum Lux. We lit up the rear wheels coming out of the forward chicanes as we went green flag racing. He collected Julian Eichenlaub, and so few drivers got collected in that instant. And well, whilst nobody wants to see a big incident like that, the way in which everybody handled it, including the drivers who were caught up in it, was absolutely brilliant. And to be fair, we couldn't have asked for a better way not to have a major incident at the start of a race. But once our race really got going, well, that's where the intrigue really kicked in, because in the elite class, whilst he may have missed out on pole position, Mirko Bortolotti wasted no time in securing his 5th win of the season, and he just gradually pulled away at the front of the field after stealing the lead off his teammate Marinko Jornowski. But there was battling further down in the Gazek's racing team camp, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that very shortly. Meanwhile, in the pro class, where it was Angel Adonis who took pole position in his class by 1.8 seconds over Matthias Pettinger. He was absolutely dominant in qualifying, working with Zenosis Esports teammates, and in the end he was able to just bolt away from a P4 overall start, and nobody else could quite catch up to him, and he had minimal pressure to bring on home his 3rd win of the season. There was plenty of intrigue, meanwhile, for the rest of the podium spots in the pro class. And in the interclass, meanwhile, it was Kevin Smith, who may have missed out on pole by 2 attempts to Pinto Sommel Levente, but in an intriguing twist for the BMW driver who absolutely loved Le Mans, Le Mans gave him no love back by comparison after starting from the pit lane, and it all went so very wrong over the distance of the race, whereas for Kevin Smith, meanwhile, he had the perfect opportunity to take the lead straight away and then just run away as he could not be caught by the rest of the Interclass and taking his second win of the season, having joined midway through the season. But those were your winners. Those were the headline stories at Le Mans circuit, and as we come to the 20th of February and we're here at Brazil today, well, there's plenty more stories up and down the grid that we need to talk about. Well, before we get into this round of race, and indeed before we head to our next round of the week's time, the Autodromo International del Mugello, the Italian circuit there for round number 9, will be playing host on the 27th of February, and that's where we make it our way back to our 60-minute feature races, which will see us out for the remainder of the season, including, of course, at Suzuka in 2 weeks' time on the 6th of March there. It's crazy to think we are almost at the conclusion already, but we've still got plenty of racing to come. But as we come into tonight then, we've given you the headline stories of what was Le Mans, but what are the stories with regards to the standings? We start off with the Elite Drivers' Championship standings, and as we can see, Mirko Bortolotti, a flawless run of 5 wins for every round he's been able to participate in, albeit it hasn't quite been flawless anymore with regards to his pole positions, having lost that pole position record to what was Marinko Jornowski last time out, who did break the trend. However, the Gazix Racing Team MCM driver in his machinery absolutely bolted away in his Ferrari in the early stage of the race, and nobody could quite catch up, but he definitely had to dig deep in order to be able to do it in a Ferrari that definitely looked as though it was worse for wear on pace right towards the end. He now leads by only a single point over Martin Stattmann. Stattmann there for Gazix Racing Team MCM having a bit of an altercation with Jornowski in the late stages of the racing at Le Mans. A bit of contact between the two at Indianapolis corner when they were both fighting for what was the second place there, or should we really say the third place there, because there was a driver who spoiled the party on the podium for what was Gazix Racing Team, and we'll come to him very shortly, but the two of them fighting over that third, and in the end it was the Austrian driver who got ahead, but the German driver Marinko Jornowski had to settle for 5th instead when it almost all went to the wall. In third is Miguel Leon. He is a further 6 points behind, and while the Enosis Esports driver, he had one of the most peculiar race start incidents that we've ever seen, in the fact that he made his way out the Dunlop chicane, but side-to-side contact with Tim Perry propelled him to the gravel, albeit Perry not found at fault by that one. It was a racing incident whereby Miguel Leon in the end seemed to ricochet off the side of the Altitude Frame Esports machine. Indeed, nothing quite like it, and it does mean he's fallen to third, but he did recover well to a 6th place finish, and he's ahead of Tim Perry by only the best part there of 19 points. The Altitude Frame Esports driver still trying to get himself fully acclimatised to a Corvette, and he had a very frustrating day in his own words at Le Mans. Nothing seemed to go right. Even though the 4th place on paper looked good, he did feel as though it really was a day when nothing quite went his way. Well, the man who spoiled the party on the podium for the Gazix Racing Team and stopped them from making it 3 all Gazix Racing podiums in a row in the elite class, Sylvain Depêche, the Q Racing Team driver, who pulled off an absolutely incredible piece of strategy to out-fuel save both Stattmann and Jornowski and leapt his way into 2nd place, and they could not catch up at the very end of the race, and the Porsche 911 RSR driver from France was able to make sure that he was the one finishing runner-up to Bortolotti. We then saw Jornowski taking 6th place there for Gazix Racing Team JRM, not able to replicate his pole position. We will win and instead settling with 5th after his contact with Stattmann. And then we did see Pedro Luis da Silva not on the grid once again due to personal circumstances, but from what I'm hearing, all is well with the Portuguese driver as well as can be, and the GPX Sim Sport Onyx driver right now, we may not see him for the rest of the season. Albert Frisch sits in 8th for a non-finish last time out. The Spanish driver had a nightmare day at Le Mans, and he drops to 8th place down 133 points, with Olivia Dean continuing to try and move forward, but Dean not his home circuit last time out, and the Cube Racing Team driver will hopefully be back today. If he's not, then Chad Henson might have a chance to steal away that 9th place, only 7 points behind for Los Dos Bravado, and he rounds off your top 10 just ahead of Christian Ablasser for a non-finish. Once again, unfortunately, really scuppered his chances, albeit his first non-finish of the season, it should be pointed out, and the Austrian driver ahead there of the Antarctican, Henning Schwebig, and will beast racing not on the grid in his form last time out, and we look forward to seeing him back in the near future. But that completes your top 12 of the Elite Drivers' Championship. What about the pros? Well, here in the pro class, the Inox Motorsport driver Benjamin Massey, he is the one constant in the very top. 272 points, a return to the podium, and it means he's holding on to the lead by 10 points over Gazix Racing Team JRM's Rene Rüssler. For Rüssler, it was a rather rough race. In the fact, he was involved in a lap 1 incident. The incident itself, however, was not the punishing part, because he was able to get himself going once again, but when he did, the only problem he had at Le Mans was he had nobody to be a friend with. Very lonely out of the circuit for the BMW driver, and therefore he could not find slipstream, and he could not find his way back forward, and in the end he had to take a 12th place in the pro class that was representative of the fact he had nobody to slipstream off of, even though he had race-winning pace. So the Austrian driver there having a miserable day, and he'll be hoping that today's a much happier one. He's ahead of Angel Ordonez, who is fast approaching 40 points behind, now with 3 wins, a 3rd and a 9th, but also 2 DNFs. For Ordonez at this point, it means he's got to achieve perfection every round if he wants a chance at this championship title, but of course if he does not, Academy drops one more round, then suddenly we'll be seeing it come down to a two-horse race potentially between Massey and Rustler. Jan Lint, a second place for him. Now back-to-back second place finishes, 3 podiums in a row. The GazX Racing Team JRM driver is a further 11 points behind, and keep your eyes out for him because he's growing increasingly strong. There's no doubt about it, and we had the pleasure of hearing from him in a post-round interview last week, and goodness me, the enthusiasm for him was absolutely infectious. Matthias Pettinger sits in at 5th meanwhile, and the Inox Motorsport driver from Austria, it wasn't a happy day at the office once again. Whilst it went well for Massey and also his other teammate of Abaseg, it did not go well for him whatsoever, and that 14th really scuppering his momentum. He's ahead of Cedric Boyce by the best part of 12 points there for Cube Racing Team. Also had a miserable day in his Ford GT, but he's still ahead of Chris Round by 3 points, with the Axis SimSport driver not quite able to recreate his early season form, nor his form at Silverstone with that incredible pole position. And Ryan Walker, meanwhile, with a 4th place finish last time out, his form continues to fly high, and well, the Altitude 3M esports driver and satellite podcast driver definitely right now having plenty to talk about. But from the Scotsman, it's then the American of Brandon White. He's always one to watch out for, even if things didn't go quite right at Le Mans, and he's on 135 points ahead of Flavien Tieffre, and well, for Tieffre on 115 points after a transition from the Interclass to the Pro Class. It definitely has been a bit of a rough run in recent rounds, but can he finally arrest the rot and get himself back into that podium? We'll have to wait and see. Mikael Eversett there for Inox Motorsport and GPX SimSport Onyx's Robin Noel Brown complete your Pro top 12, and then come into the Interclass. Here we can see that the lead that Pinto Levente had has been slightly slashed. It's now down to a lead of only 15 points, 276 to the 261 of John Ludbrook. And as we mentioned only moments ago, a circuit at Le Mans that he loves, but unfortunately the love was not reciprocated back in France, and therefore the Hungarian driver had to finish 4th after a race which seemed to be full of calamities. Meanwhile, John Ludbrook, it was calamities earlier on in the season after what was those first 2 wins in rounds 1 and 3, but now he's found his way back onto the podium twice in a row. He's gone from 3rd to 2nd. Now surely the theory's got to be here today. He takes the 1st place finish if the maths is right, and with that may move him to the very top. But the GPX SimSport Xenon driver will know there's still plenty to go, and there's plenty of rivals looking to also do the same. First up, of course, is his teammate of Andrew Fellows, who have achieved back-to-back 5th place finishes, but he wants to be on the podium as well after a run of podiums that was interrupted at round number 4, and we've yet to resume it. He's only ahead of Bruno Key based on result countback, but the 2 drivers there absolutely equal on points, and the WePay 300 esports driver now looking further forward. There's this incredible knack in the BMW M8 of just surprising everyone by suddenly being on the podium right at the end of the race. And we saw that again at Le Mans, where he just simply stayed out of trouble, did nothing wrong, and that's why he's so close now to be inside that top 3. Brian Beardsworth as well, he's growing in momentum, albeit Le Mans did not reciprocate that momentum, and therefore he fell back to 9th place in the end. But the Briton ahead of Logan Timberlake and the Sim Party Racing driver, you got to feel for him. Surely his day is going to come where everything goes quite right, because he's not been able to quite recreate that 2nd place from Road America, but the day he's able to do so, I suspect we are going to see him not just on the podium, but we are going to see him take his 1st win of the season. Kevin Smith, meanwhile, now a 2-time winner for Rano Academy, a 3-time podium finisher. He's only participated in 4 rounds, and he's already sending reverberations through the Interclass. He's ahead of Craig Tillotson, his teammate there, by 2 points, with Tillotson continuing to chase another top 5. He's had 1 so far this season. He'd like another one at least. He was just short of it last time out. And then we do have James Bostock with that early retirement due to a black flag down the Molesane Straight on the opening couple of laps. Well, the GPX SimSport Onyx driver was telling me in the build-up to today that he's definitely been struggling with this BMW M8 at Interlagos, and finding that after 5 or 6 laps, the tyres really do go astray. But hopefully he's been able to get on top of his tyres, because if not, Marcus Singendonk might be able to move ahead of him. Mello Motorsports driver there in 10th place, the Dutch driver, just ahead of the American of Virgilio Garcia, and then Chris Husky there rounds off your top 12 for the Interclass. But if that's how all our Drivers' Championship stand, what about the Teams' Championship? And what we can see here in the Teams' Championship is the fact that it is tightening within the top 5. First through to 5th are separated by only 28 points, which is always exciting when we're getting towards the end of the season. Inox Motorsport, they continue to hold on at the very top because they've had a decent haul of points on them on. How they will now know, with only a 14-point advantage to the GazX Racing Team MCM, that right now they really need to bring out their best. It needs to be their Friday best here at Interlagos, as otherwise the GazX Racing Team may jump ahead with 2 rounds remaining. But I noticed Esports as well, they're in 3rd. They are only at the best part of what is 7 points behind, and arguably the Spanish team, if things have gone alright for Miguel Leon in particular, and also for Albert Prisch, could they have potentially moved into lead at Le Mans? Well, that's always a big what-if question, but right now they've got to think hard and fast in the present. The same for the second of the GazX Racing teams, JRM there. They're on 524, and their momentum is such right now, they've slipped slightly back into 4th place from 3rd, particularly with the difficulties that Rene Rustler found himself in the early stage at Le Mans, and then GPX SimSport Xenon sit in 5th there. They're holding onto that position, and the points are gradually coming back to them. However, they need to maintain that momentum. They will not want to see the top 4 leave them behind, because otherwise they'll be in a no man's land. And then we've got quite a bit of time until we get to what is 57 points behind Cube Racing Team there, who lead the rest of the field. The French outfit there ahead of Altitude Frame Esports, but the gap between the two teams is only standing at a comfortable 14 points, albeit it's not feeling that great between them. And do keep in mind, of course, that Olivier Dean's technical issues that we saw at France will definitely blighted him hard, and be hoping those issues don't come back today. Altitude Frame Esports, by comparison, meanwhile, they are building momentum, particularly for what was those 2 fourth place finishes for both Tim Perry and Ryan Walker. And then behind them, by the best part of 100 points, is GPX SimSport Onyx, who hold on to 8th, but they do have Rhino Academy approaching them very quickly, particularly with the points injections that Kevin Smith has been given over the last couple of rounds. And then We Pay 300 Esports, with the reinforcements of Handa Yang and Kwong Li 2 to Bruno Key, they are now starting to get much more comfortable inside the top 10, and they are breaking away from the rest of the field, because in 11th place, not on the screen today, is Sim Party Racing on 206 points, and they are in an increasingly tight battle for 11th place between themselves, Axis SimSport, HTS Racing, and Beast Racing. So we'll keep you up to date with regards to that as the season heads towards its conclusion. But that is the story coming into this round. Let's talk a little bit about our circuit and then get ready to head back to circuit side. We are racing at the Grand Prix layout of the Interlagos circuit, or the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. But regardless of the name, the circuit stays in the same location, located in the neighborhood of Interlagos in São Paulo city of Brazil. 2.67 miles in length, or 4.3 kilometers, depending on how you cut the units. But regardless of how you cut the units, you won't be able to cut away from the fact it's a 15-corner circuit. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. As the drivers roar the way down the start-finish straight, they'll head into the Senna S, named after the legend Ayrton Senna, who only ever won one Formula 1 Grand Prix at the circuit in his 8th attempt here. It's crazy to think a legend like that did not win at his home circuit until the 8th attempt, and only having, I do believe it was 5th gear in the race where he won it right towards the very end of the race. But as our drivers make the way through the Senna S, they'll very quickly make the way flat out through Curva do Sol. Then it'll be onto the Retroposta straight, the second of the 2 long straights, the other one being the start-finish, and as they head in towards turn number 4, they head into the middle sector. Then it's going to be hard on the brakes for the Descida do Largo as they come through the downhill left-hander and then make the way uphill through 5 and in towards Ferradura and Curva do La Renina at turns 6 and 7. Through the double right apex, off camber between the 2 corners, then they make way onto the flat for the first of the 2 hairpins at turn number 8. They'll be sharp on the brakes before they go downhill, but not too far, as otherwise they'll trip the way downhill through Pinheiro corner. Get it right, and they'll make the way up towards the Bico do Pato hairpin at turn number 10, and that's the heaviest braking zone and the lowest speed corner of the circuit. Then coming out of the cambered bend, they'll make the way through Magulo, a very hard corner to get right, particularly on heavy fuel. You don't want to take too much apex curb, as otherwise the curb will turn you around. But coming down that hill, they'll make their way in towards Juncao corner at turn number 12, a sharp left-hand right angle corner, where it's all about return to full throttle as soon as possible, because it'll be flat out all the way through turns 13, 14, and 15 to complete lap and do it all over again. Alternatively, finally see that checker flag after 90 minutes of racing action. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've set enough of the scene. Let's make our way back to circuit side and see how all the drivers are getting on here right in the conclusion of this qualifying session. And right now, the fastest driver out there with 13 minutes to go is Mirko Bortolotti, overall in elite. However, he has got some relatively close company behind. The first driver here, of course, on a 28.430 at the moment in his Ferrari 488 Evo. And we do know this Ferrari is a very capable car. Over 1 lap or even over race distance, but it does have that very narrow operating window, particularly with regards to tyre temperatures, and should it go outside of that window, suddenly the car becomes a very tricky car. But to be fair to Bortolotti, where he started the season in the Corvette, or the transition to this Ferrari, well, I can tell you one thing, he's made that transition look absolutely seamless, and right now the real-life racing superstar and simulator star as well is proven to be absolutely untouchable in qualifying, it would seem. Angel Dones, meanwhile, he's currently your provisional pole sitter in the Pro class, second fastest overall there. That's very impressive, albeit the context when we add it makes it look a little bit less impressive when you consider he's only a tenth ahead of Benjamin Massey. And between the two of them, you have Martin Stattmann and Tim Perry, the 2 elite drivers. I suspect this is going to get very close between elite and pro drivers at the front of the field today, and that's what we look forward to seeing. Speaking of Massey, here he is in his Corvette for Inox Motorsport, the new livery on the car as he makes his way up the hill. Of course, this livery has been with them for the last couple of rounds, we should point out, but this is the latest livery they brought to the grid. Keep in mind, of course, they started the season in the rather orange and black coloured Ferrari 488 Evo machines, then they moved to the Corvette midway through the season, and while that transition to the Corvette has had a few bumpy moments, but they have been making it work. As you see Massey there with Matthias Pettinger, his teammate right behind. Pettinger, meanwhile, all the way down in 15th place, but benefiting from the draft to his teammate. I think this is a bit of a team tactic here to try and help them both move up that order. Where exactly is Mikkel Everset by comparison? Well, here is their third driver right now, moving to the red livery for today and changing car by looks of things, going to the Porsche 911 RSR. So that'll be his 1 free car change for the season being used up as he makes way across that timing line, well in 8th currently of your pro drivers and not improving their 17th overall. We talked about what is your elites, we talked about your pros. How exactly is it going in the interclass? Well, John Ludbrook is currently the fastest of all your inters on a 1 minute 29.581. This is a bit of a bucking of the trend. It's normally been shared between what's been Kevin Smith and Pinto Sombolavente, but I do believe that we don't have the Hungarian driver with us right now. I wonder, in fact, yes, we do have him with us. I do apologise. How rude of me not to say he's here. Indeed, I need to cast my eyes over the times a bit more closely. He is currently in 4th place, and meanwhile, Ludbrook, the leader, just ahead of Logan Timberlake, who, whilst we were castrating ourselves over that, well, we can definitely see here the fact that Logan Timberlake has leapt his way in between Ludbrook and Smith. The gap between these 3 drivers then only the best part of 700ths. It is razor tight, and Timberlake able to put himself right in the midst of the party, but I suspect that right now he'll be hoping to be at the very top of the party, as Kevin Smith, meanwhile, for Verano Academy in his Porsche 911 RSR, looking relatively quick. Has he improved this time? He's had a better middle sector, and the answer is yes. He gets ahead of Timberlake. He is now 7 thousandths of a Ludbrook, so it is getting much closer at the very top of the interclass here, and if anybody else improves further behind, we could definitely have a very contentious class. Now, with regards to any penalties here today, as we do look to Jack Wells, there's no relation, should we point out here, with regards to Wells versus penalties. It's just a coincidence we are looking at him. Indeed, it could be applied to any driver here. We have no penalties coming into this race. So therefore, everyone is entitled to qualify. Everyone is entitled to race as they normally would. There are no expectations of drive-throughs midway for the race or anything like that. And to be fair to our GTE competitors, they've all been relatively very clean for this maiden season. The quality of the racing has been absolutely top-notch. And I'm sure you guys and girls at home would agree with me on that one. After what's been 7 rounds of racing, it has been absolutely incredible to see the candour and the capacity that everyone has brought to the racing. But as we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, including none other than Richard Vaz, and says, hello, how are we doing, guys? And well, we're doing well here in the content booth, Richard. I hope you're doing well as well, and that you're all set for tonight. We also say hello there to Izzy Pop, and saying a shout out to the Altitude 3M drivers. Let's go, guys. In terms of some Altitude 3M drivers, let's go find one of them. Well, here is one of them, Mark Hutchinson. I mean, how could we not find him there with the gleaming pink wheel rims? As I completely stumble over my own words there. I could promise you I've been drinking water in the commentary booth for a Friday evening. Not alcohol yet, that's for after this broadcast. And as he comes on down through turn 9, the 233 driver at the moment, currently one of the lowest placed elite drivers. The lowest of those who set a time, currently 10th in the class, 18th overall. So the Ford GT driver here right now, definitely looking for a little bit more, but he's definitely had some moments of brilliance. He's also had some moments where he has struggled this season, but that's what these GT machines are like. They really are right on the ragged edge. You've got to be very good in terms of how you get to grips with the car. You've really got to understand the machine. There is no quarter otherwise. But as we also do say hello there to Dixie Rob, who says, Bostock podium or bust again. Praying he can get onto the podium in a different step to normal. Well, we do look forward to seeing whether James Bostock can go one step further than the 3rd place on the podium. Of course, he has been trying to chase down wins, and many would argue that if it were not for the way it all went a bit wrong at what was not, let's say, Le Mans, but the round before that, we could have potentially been seeing Bostock chase down the win in the Interclass at Silverstone, but it was not to be, and well, he's here today looking to see if he can arrest that problem. But the problem he's got right now is he is the 8th fastest in the Interclass, and that BMW does not seem to be giving him anything as he locks up there under braking into turn 8, and in the end pulls the car straight off the racing line there, tries to get clear and just tiptoes his way back up to speed, and well, very well done there for Bostock to be able to do that. As meanwhile, Virgilio Garcia has just set his first valid lap of this qualifying session, and that puts him 36th. The lowest of those who qualified on a 35.40 to the nearest 100th, and the only 2 drivers who have not put in a lap as of yet are Justin Noel and Chad Henson. So we do have 38 drivers in attendance here, and in fact Jack Wells as well. Let's make that 39, and Wells is still trying to get a valid lap on the board. But as we do say hello there to Brettigas, and well, I'm not quite familiar with regards to my internet acronyms, to be fair. I think TGIF means thank goodness it's Friday, and if so, well, I'm basing it on the fact that we do have a restaurant chain here in the United Kingdom called TGI Fridays, or thank goodness it's Friday, where you absolutely eat a ton of food. I think it is an American chain, and well, that's my understanding of where internet slang comes from, if you will, or at least just modern speak. But it's great to have you with us, Brettigas, and whether you're choosing to use acronyms, alternatively full English, we don't mind here. We accept every type of what is language, no doubt about it. We're a very welcoming community at SimRacing International, and I hope you're doing well, sir. But as we do see 6.5 minutes left on the clock, well, right now that gives us an opportunity to get an on-board lap with one of our drivers. But who are we going to ride on board with? Well, I think we might be getting an on-board lap very shortly with Adrian Block, who has assured me, we gave him a bit of a shout out in the broadcast last time out, given how the early hours of the morning is for him in Australia. He's absolutely pumped full of what is a bit of caffeine, and well, let's get on board of his flying lap. So as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 and looks his right hand side, braking there just before the 50 metre board in his Ford GT, coming down to second gear now, keeping it in the middle of the road here to open up turn number 2, but giving himself also a stable car, and now flat out through turn number 3. Going through heel, naturally let the car drift out wide. He doesn't have to use that much steering angle. This Ford GT very flexible, and as he heads down towards turn number 4, looking to his right hand side, he'll find his brake marker there. It will be around the 100 metre board, coming all the way down the gears to third gear. Plenty of apex curve. So long as he doesn't go more than 4 wheels beyond the white line, he'll be fine at 4, and he does exactly what he needs to do there as he now heads up the hill. Getting ready to go in towards turn 6 and 7, a very difficult set of corners. No real brake marker here other than the marshal's post on the left-hand side, about 75 metres from apex. He drops all the way down to third gear, crests the apex, and then makes his way in towards turn number 8, down to first gear here. And now he's got to make his way downhill, unsighted as he targets the apex of turn number 9, and coming out to pin a hero corner, he'll bring the car to exit curb and out towards turn number 10. Keep it nice and wide to the outside to open up the hairpin, down to first gear once again, an apex speed of 54 miles an hour. And now coming in towards Magulo, the left-hander flat out here as he dares, and coming down the hill, not too much apex curb, and in towards Jinsao corner. Hard on the brakes from 100 metres, second gear, and now flat out all the way out the hill. This has been a beautifully smooth lap from Block, to be fair. Buttery smooth by comparison with some laps that we've ridden on board with over the course of this season. And as he makes his way around where it hasn't been the fastest lap from him, in fact, he's not improved in any of the sectors. But again, the fact he's 15th overall and 9th right now as he heads towards the timing line, where he keeps the car to the right-hand side. And that tells you he is going for an even faster lap, because of the fact if a driver's on a good lap, they will stay over to the left to shorten the run to the timing line. And of course, the natural law of physics is the quickest way between points A and B is in a straight line, and when you do weave over to the right coming through turn number 15, it means you're extending the run to build up more speed to go into turn number 1 once again. But as Block makes his way down towards turn number 4, well, right now still trying to find a bit of time out there, but meanwhile, who else is trying to make a bit of a mission, trying to make some progress? Robin Noel Brown is definitely trying to do so as he heads on through. We do say hello there to Seb Ploeg, or Ploeg Gamer 363, who asked the question, is GT a bit faster than GT3? That is correct. Now, depending on the circuit, it will vary from anywhere between a second a lap faster through to about 6 seconds a lap faster. At circuits with a lot of corners and heavy braking zones, GT3s are almost on the pace of GTs, because GTEs, the main differences are, firstly, a little bit more horsepower in a GTE to the best part of around 20 to 50 horsepower. Secondly, as we do see Noel Brown parking up there, I think deciding to throw in the towel this qualifying session. He can't go any higher than 16th, and we'll look to Christian Ablasa instead. The second thing about these GTs, they have no ABS, no anti-lock braking system. They do have traction control, but where they lose the time versus a GT3 is in the braking zones, because they cannot brake late as a GT3, as we saw in the America's GT Challenge, of course, last year, where the two classes shared the grid together, and it led to some incredible multi-class racing action. The only other thing to consider, of course, is that these GTEs, they have fully adjustable gear ratios. You can set the gears up as you want, whereas GT3s are locked to fixed ratios, and also the aerodynamics of the GTEs are much more restrictive in terms of what you can and cannot adjust, albeit you do have that large rear wing which you can always touch. So as the drivers make the way on through, if you're uninitiated as well, and we just give the a bit of initiation there to Player Gamer. In terms of our driver classes, what do the colours mean? If a driver does have red against their name, that means they are an elite class driver, the creme of la creme. Meanwhile, if they have green against their name, and you also see it on the door cards of these machines, then that means they're in the pro class, our second tier. And then if they've got blue against them, such as, for example, none other than Pinto Sombra Levente, as he makes one around then as BMW M8, the privateer here is part of the interclass, which is our third tier, albeit, to be fair, they may be quote-unquote the slowest, or perhaps a bit less experienced drivers, but to be fair, they also put up an absolute brilliant fight like they all do across our classes, and we've definitely seen a few inter drivers really take the pros to town, as we have seen a few pros take the elites to town over the course of the racing this season, and these classes have proven to be very balanced for the most part, to be fair, as well. Well, as we do see Levente make his way to the line, well, he's going to have one more chance. Does he? No, he pulls in, so he's not happy. He's not going to go again. Meanwhile, Mirko Bortolotti in the slipstream there of one of his teammates. I think that is the teammate there of Bortolotti, who is right in front of him, giving the tow all the way to the end. Can Bortolotti steal away the pole position like at Le Mans? Well, as he comes towards that time line, this is going to be a last-ditch attempt. He goes purple in the final sector. He was sixth, and for Bortolotti, it's fourth. That opening sector really holding back, but on a 28.661, that is not bad, to be fair, as both drivers park up there and they say, that's it, we don't want to do any more. But as Benjamin Massey makes his way to the line, right now, bringing along his teammates behind him. So therefore, they'll be hoping they can perhaps move what will be none other than Mikael Eversek up the order, given he's 17th at the moment. And well, that's the Inox Motorsport trio there, all together, all in the pro class. Meanwhile, Christian Ablas, the fastest of everybody in the opening sector. Has he had a toe off of somebody? I don't think he has. I think that's of his own volition. Well, he's got a lot of pace there in that Corvette C8R. It's just not quite clicking together in the second and third sectors, and that's a bit understandable. But as they come on down and through the quarters right now, well, as we do look further on down the order, who's perhaps struggling in this qualifying session? Bruno Key, 5th in the interclass right now. Is he struggling, or is this just a sign he's probably going to sneak under the radar once again? Well, he's in the draft there of his teammate of Kwong Lee 2, who right now is with him in 26th. So there's only 2 places overall between these two. That's perhaps the biggest surprise here, that the 120 Porsche is struggling. But one thing we should note with regards to the weather conditions here today, now the officials, of course, we are running the same calendar as the officials in terms of our host venues. The conditions have been reported by drivers who have been racing officials all week. The idea is that gives our drivers the best opportunity to practice for each and every round. They've been reporting that the weather conditions in the officials have been a lot hotter. They have been seeing track temperatures anywhere between 40 to 50 degrees centigrade, whereas here we have 37 degrees centigrade and an ambient of 21 degrees centigrade. So it is a bit more comfortable, and I think that's just going to work to the favour of our drivers here, particularly those in, say, the Ferraris and also the BMWs who might be worried about tyre temperatures. We have a bit of partial cloud, so therefore this circuit will stay relatively hot with an amount of running down on it. There's going to be from all of our drivers, but as Kwon Lee 2 runs his way down into the pit lane, he decides enough's enough. Bruno Key in the end at 28. I don't think Key's going to improve as he comes across the line, but he has one more lap to go if he wants to use it, and the same there for the driver behind him in the Ferrari, and that's going to be none other than what is Mirko Bortolotti giving it one last go. But does he need to? Probably not here, given the fact that he is currently provisional pole sitter, as we've got a few more drives still to come on around. Rene Rosler as well. He's midway through a lap at the moment. And the BMW M8 driver currently 8th, 3rd fastest in the pro class. Not a bad performance to be fair, but nobody's been able to light a candle to Angel Adonis with regards to the 10th for the distance between Benjamin Massey and Adonis. Here is Benjamin Massey, and well, I wouldn't be surprised here if we are going to see a very strategic race between the two drivers, given the fact both in the Corvettes. Then we do know the Corvette, normally the strategy car, it does have the greatest operating window and lifespan of its tyres, and also it can save fuel a little bit better than the other cars out there, whereas meanwhile, of course, the Ferrari, normally the best on one lap pace, as is the BMW, albeit it is independent from circuit to circuit. The Ford GT is always going to be an interesting one, and it does love high downforce circuits, of which Interlagos is a medium to high downforce circuit, so it can work quite nicely here. And in the Porsche 911 RSI is always a stable set of boots for our drivers to be able to take on a circuit, and we'll expect our Porsche drivers to do relatively well. But as we do see Russell make his way towards the line, does he improve this time? He comes on through. He was 8th. Does he find a bit more time? And the answer is going to be no. Meanwhile, Mirko Bortolotti has got purple towards the end of the lap here. Is he going to go even faster? I do wonder. In fact, no. He ducks to the pit lane, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. So it is going to be Mirko Bortolotti who takes pole position here over on in Elite, and joining him on that front row of the grid is going to be Angel Adonis, your pro pole sitter. But then you've got to look all the way down to 20th place for your interpole sitter, and it will be John Ludbrook by only 7 thousandths over Kevin Smith, who in turn was only what was 24 thousandths ahead of Logan Timblake. It is very tight in the interclass. In pro, Benjamin Massey, who we see on screen here, was only a 10th behind Angel Adonis, but Stattmann, John Oski and Perry have put themselves between him and his pro rival, and he will have 2 more places to Rene Rosler. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, as all drivers are called back into the pit lane if they're not already there, well, we're only a moment or two away before we do go racing. And of course, we do have a 5-minute warm-up period first, which our drivers do have the opportunity to get a bit of a comfort break in. And well, also you guys and girls at home have a bit of an opportunity. If you haven't got yourself some liquid refreshment, if you haven't got yourself a snack or a few snacks of your choosing, then we definitely recommend you go do it now, because after this 5-minute warm-up session, there will be no other opportunity for a break in all the action, and that's when we will be making our way to the grid for the 8th time this season. And well, for our drivers right now, so those who are deciding not to stay in the pit lane, for those who are deciding to make their way back out there, well, this will be to get a gauge of how the conditions have evolved from qualifying to the race. Now, you may be sat there and thinking, well, we don't have rain on iRacing for GTEs, although we'd love to see the rain come at one point for GTEs. I wonder if it will come later this year, albeit that's purely speculation. That's not a sign of things to come. But the point is, why would you go out there and check the conditions? Well, firstly, multiple things have happened. In qualifying, there's been plenty of cars out on circuit, and with all the tyre that's been laid down, or the rubber that's been laid down on the tarmac, you want to get an understanding of how much much rubber is out there, how much grip is there now, latent grip in the surface. Secondly, if track temperature has changed or wind direction has changed, you'll be able to feel it as you make your way on around. Of course, the drivers have plenty of data loggers out there. They have people on the pit wall. While conditions have not evolved since qualifying, they have stayed exactly as is, but that will be the thought process of our drivers. Has anything changed out there? But also, lastly, and by no means least, some drivers, they are just absolutely seeking the need to keep the adrenaline pumping. They want to keep the blood flying, they want to keep the rhythm. And Interlagos is definitely one of those circuits whereby once you get into a rhythm, it does feel a very comfortable circuit, because there are several corners here which do lack brake markers. It is all about muscle memory and rhythm in the end, and particularly when you do have to be very careful of the brake pedals on these GTEs, because go too hard initially under braking, as Angel Adonis there doesn't go hard enough under braking to São corner, but he does rally across his way back onto the road. Well done to him for that. And well, the idea being, if you go too harsh, you will lock up those front brakes and the car will be propelled forward into the braking zone. It will understeer, and when you lock those brakes up, another two things happen. Firstly, you will overheat the front brakes, and secondly, you will overheat the front tyres, because what will happen is the front tyres will stop rolling and they will start to skid, and that's when you get a flat spot on one side of the tyre and you start to cause significant graining into the compound, and that degrades the tyre life of the tyre absolutely considerably. But as we do see Adonis there tucking in behind the BMW of none other and what is Martin Stattmann. Well, Stattmann did very well in qualifying, to be fair, to put himself right towards the front on the top 3 rows. But the Austrian driver 9 today, that he really needs a minimum a second place, if not to take the win, if he wants to give himself every opportunity to try and move forward. Now, do keep in mind in the championship standings that we do have 1 drop score over the course of the season, and those drop scores will become increasingly important as we get towards the tail end. But of course, if you are taking wins in every round that you would do attend, and you've attended 5 out of 7 rounds, understandably, you are going to get a huge haul of points. And another thing that we haven't talked about, with regards to the racing tonight and the points indeed tonight, we do have an extra 50% of points up for grabs. This is an endurance race round, and therefore the rules and regulations do state that rather than your typical 50 points up for grabs for the win, you do have in your class 75 points up for grabs. These endurance race rounds, given they are an extra 50% longer, they are worth an extra 50% of points, and that's why you never want to miss them. Albeit, as we do look to Jordan Chamberlain, who we had a pleasure of chatting to last time out after his racing at Le Mans. He enjoyed himself out there for Dynasty Motorsports, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do today, although he's going to find himself starting right in the midst of what will be your pro field, right in the mid-pack overall as well. But to be fair, never count this man out, because he is a very quick driver under strategy, albeit sometimes in qualifying it doesn't always work out. But as we do say hello there to Real Bottle Job, who says Mr. Bostock is a magical man with regards to the session timings of what is this lobby. And we also do say hello there to Craig Tillotson, who says hi, and we say hi to Craig as well. And well, Craig, I hope you're doing well. We'll into pit lane goes John Chamberlain, and Craig Tillotson right now in the pit lane there, sat in the car, and as he gets himself all ready to go, and we jump aboard the roll bar camera there, we're in that Ferrari 488 Evo right now, just itching to go, I suspect, but not wanting to go out there, not wanting to do anything else other than just take a breather and get himself comfortable, because of course 90 minutes of racing just around the corner, and everybody will be thinking to himself one thing and one thing only, and that is survive every lap. This Interlagos circuit is a punishing one. When you get it wrong, in the opening half of the lap, it's not too bad. There's plenty of runoff area. In the second half of the lap, there's less runoff area, and it's all about grass that typically slopes away from the tarmac. And the problem with that, of course, is once you start going onto the grass will naturally pull you away from the tarmac, and then you've got to try and recover. And particularly if you go wide on the exit of São corner, you are going to be driving downhill for a very long period of time and carry too much speed off the road. You're actually going to be finding yourself going into either the escape road to the marshals and to a concrete barrier out there, and that's the last thing you want to do. And we have seen that in previous seasons of racing here at SimRacing International, where drivers have carried a bit too much enthusiasm and speed into turn 12, and it's finding in the end they've hit a dead end, which has been that wall. Meanwhile, as Mirko Bortolotti comes the end of this warm-up, 10 seconds left on the clock, ladies and gentlemen, and without further ado, as all drivers cool things on down, well, let's get set, because it is time to make our way to the grid for what is round number 8 of the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 1, as brought to you on iRacing from the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. And so as our drivers make the way to the grid for the 8th round of the championship, this is how they'll all line up. It is Mirko Bortolotti who takes pole position for the GTE Racing MCM team by 2 tenths in the end, elite and overall ahead of your pro pole sitter of Angel Ordonez. The Enosis Esports driver targeting his 4th win of the season, and he set himself up right to try and do it. Behind the Spaniard on row number 2, it'll be the Austrian driver of Martin Stattmann for GTE Racing MCM in the company of the man he made haste and hay with last time out, Mirko Bortolotti, who starts 4th for GTE Racing JRM. Behind them, starting on the 3rd row of the grid, it's Tim Perry for Altitude Frame Esports, looking to have a less frustrating day in the office today, ahead of Benjamin Massey for Inox Motorsport, who starts 2nd of your pros. 9, the championship lead is on the line. Olivia Dean on a return to the grid today for Cube Racing Team, a much happier day, no technical issues. He starts 7th for one of his best qualifying points of the season. From the Frenchman, it's René Rosler starting alongside him in 8th place for GTE Racing JRM. And then we do have Matthias Pertinger for Inox Motorsport in 9th place, just ahead of Flavien Thierry with one of his best qualifying points of the season, starting 10th for ID File competition. Behind them on row number 6, it's best the rest in the length, Miguel Leon for Enosis Esports. Not the qualifying session he wanted, but he is ahead of Christian Ablasser for GTE Racing MCM. And then it's going to be Albert Parrish, the Enosis Esports driver, line up behind his teammate directly, but he is joined on the 7th row of the grid by Jan Linster for GTE Racing JRM with a weaker qualifying performance. Adrian Locke starts 15th for HTS Racing 1 ahead of Robin Noel Brown for GPX SimSport Onyx. And then we do have on row at number 9, Mikael Ebersek for Inox Motorsport, ahead of none other than what is there, Mark Hutchinson for Altitude Frame Esports. Completing your top 20, it's John Shamler for Dynasty Motorsports and your Interpro sitter of GPX SimSport Xenon's John Ludbrook. And then outside that top 20 in 21st place, it's the second of your Inters of Kevin Smith for Rhino Academy and Logan Timberlake the third of them for Sim Party Racing. 23rd, it's going to be none other than what will be the machine unit of Handa Young for We Pay 300 Esports, ahead of Cedric Boycia for Cube Racing Team. And then Peter Sommerlevente starts 25th there, 9 he's got to move forward. From the priority on the 13th row, it's then Quan Lee 2 for We Pay 300 Esports, ahead of none other than Matt Bruin for HTS Racing 1, and Bruno Key there in 28th for We Pay 300 Esports behind his teammate. Andrew Fellows starts 29th for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of Robin Aston, the privateer, and outside the top 30, it's going to be James Bostock 31st for GPX SimSport Onyx, ahead of Brian Beardsworth, the privateer. Then on the 17th row of the grid, it's going to be Brandon White for ID File competition, ahead of Eddie Theobald, with Craig Tillerson for Rhino Academy on the 18th row, joined by Virgilio Garcia, and not setting lap in qualifying, the 3 elite drivers of Jack Wells of Beast Racing, ahead of Los Dos Privados Chad Henson, and Justin Noel will complete that starting order in 39th place. I'm hearing in my ear that Chad Henson is not starting this race due to a technical issue, and therefore we have dropped one driver already, ladies and gentlemen. But we're about to drop the hammer here for round number 8, because as without further ado, as always, it's over to Marinko Jornowski to take us to the grid for what will be a grand total of none other than 90 minutes of racing action. And it's lights out and away we go here for the first and only time today as Bortolotti takes us up towards turn of 1. And as he does so, well, you can see that Angel Adonis looking for a move. It's not going to work. Fanning out 3 wide on the inside. That's Olivia Dean trying to go for the move on Tim Perry. He's not going to make it work as they come down the hill now, weaving and winding the way. It was safety through at least for the top 20 as they come in towards the Reto Poster Straight. But as we can see them all coming through the Curva del Sol, who else is going to be able to make a move further back? We can see that Mikael Absek already up 2 places here, battling with Adrian Vlock and keeping John Shamlin at bay as they get ready to go down into that braking zone. The leaders now all fanning into single line formation. It's 3 wide there in the midst of your picture, and well, oh, it's going wrong as there's braking and there's contact between several drivers, and that's going to send Robin Noel Brown around as the GPX SimSport Onyx driver turned there into the braking zone and worked to get a replay of that when we can, but he falls all down the order. And meanwhile, whilst it's all got rolled through, it's going right elsewhere because Miguel Leon's already up 3 places into 8th, still 6th in the elite class, but this is what he's wanted. He's wanted to make some progress early on, and whilst they all come through now into the middle sector, this is where things will get technical. And drivers will need to start backing off with CC Handy Yang. They're giving a bit of a tap and a bump to John Shamblin, but they both escaped that one this time. And the We Pay 300 Esports Porsche right now, definitely looking the quicker of the 2 Porsches here as they come in towards turn number 10. But I don't think he's got an opportunity right now to make that move as Pinto Sombra Levente behind. Staying in 3rd at the moment. He's gained 1 place in the interclass, but I wonder who he's gained it off of, and the answer is, well, it's none other than I do believe a struggle to start for John Ludbrook, who's dropped all the way down the order into 4th place. We'll have to get an understanding of what's exactly happened to him, as meanwhile Robin Aston has had to toe to the pits, so has James Bostock, and so has Jack Wells. All 3 of them have been caught out, and I wonder if they were all caught up in that same instant or separate instance. Well, we can speculate on that until time turns, but meanwhile Mirko Bortolotti leads then after 1 lap. It's then going to be Martin Stattmann ahead of Tim Perry. That's your top 3 over on Elite. Angel Angel Dones sits as your leader of pros in fourth, ahead of Olivia Dean, followed by Mirko Bortolotti. There's Renee Losser starting in at 7th place there still, as he makes his way on through. Currently 2nd of pro, ahead of Miguel Leon, and then Benjamin Massey is in 9th place, ahead of Flavian Tiefri. Massey has lost 1 place to Rustler, but right now won't be too upset about that. No, he's still got his sights firmly on his rival in the Pro Championship. But here comes a potential move from Matthias Pettinger, looking up the inside of Tiefri in towards turn number 4. Tiefri gives him the space, but in the end, the Inox Motorsport driver can't make the move happen. He's going to have to fall back instead. Meanwhile, further back, well, Logan Timblake's been involved in some sort of incident at turn number 4. He rejoins as safely as he can, but he wants to get himself up to speed as quickly as possible, and rejoining from outside the circuit at turn 4 into 5 can actually lead to you picking up a slowdown, so it's understandable why he's rejoined at 4 itself and tried to do it as safely as he can. I don't think his rivals will have minded that one. But going through turn 6 and 7 right now, Timberlake has gone backwards. That's down to 5th in class. Looks immediately inside there. Justin Noel dives up the inside of his fellow countryman. And Justin Noel right now back on the inside here. They're going to go too wide, left to right. It's gone wrong. Who's that going around? Is that Levente? Yes, it is. Peter Levente's had a spin. It looks like that BMW's been in a bit of an altercation as well, unless that's the camera angle. But the front bumper of that car looks peeled back. That does not look like a healthy number 91 right now. We're going to have to get a replay of that when we can. As meanwhile, there's more fighting going on. As we can see Virgilio Garcia up the inside of Brian Beardsworth. And Beardsworth's car's definitely looking worse aware. I wonder if he's had contact with Lente. Alternatively, somebody else must have. But as all these drivers head on up, well, of course, remember, this is a 90-minute race. It is a long one, and therefore anything that goes wrong at the start for a driver, they can make up for it later on. Meanwhile, it's a big dive up the inside there by Pettinger on Tiefri. That's going to be for full place. As meanwhile, there's been a lock-up for somebody who's brought up a lot of brake dust smoke there, but it seems like everyone's been able to survive. I think that was Benjamin Massey having the lock-up there, coming down from 1 into 2, but somehow he's been able to keep it going this time around, and as they make the way on down, well, right now we can see more fighting as that's Christian Ablasser being attacked by Albert Parish. Parish the Spaniard on the inside there for Enosis Esports into turn 4, and he makes it as quick as that, and Ablasser has no response other than to tuck him behind. As we ride on board here with 298, well, understandably, I think his focus is more on tyre management already and seeing how long he could go quite comfortably, because as a reminder, they do have restricted fuel tanks for these cars for the purposes of this series, but the bigger restriction is the fact that in the pit lane, these GTEs, unlike modern day GT3s, you do not change tyres and fuel simultaneously, or we could say insert the fuel whilst the tyres are being changed. Instead, you do the fuel first and then you change tyres. So the aim of the game really is to try and finish the race on your starting set of tyres if you can, because otherwise it's the fuel load plus an extra 7 seconds for every tyre that is changed after that. And well, those 7 seconds, can you make them up or not? Well, perhaps you change 1 or 2 tyres if you feel confident in doing so, but change all 4. That's going to add an extra 28 seconds onto your pit stop, and 28 seconds is not easy to catch up in the space of a 90-minute race. As Christian Ablasser right now losing out versus Parige, and we see him fall back little by little, but I think the Gazix Racing MCM driver's got a bigger strategic idea in store for us. As he makes his way on to that 4th turn of the circuit, Olivia Dean, meanwhile, he's found himself under a bit of pressure here from Angel Dones as he looks up the inside to cover off Adonis, who falls back into 5th. The pro leader right now, not too upset, I think, about losing places, but Olivia Dean, meanwhile, definitely worried about losing the top 3 of Elite as they head onto the Retro Aposta Straight. Here comes Adonis, this time pinning his way to the racing line. Dean goes defensive here as they get ready to go onto the brakes. Adonis is going to get ahead. Dean goes defensive, elbows out between the 2 of them, and well, in the end, both tries to make contact. Adonis is going to go wide as a result of that contact. Well, he's going to come back on here, but Adonis right now, does he really need this fighting? Well, the answer is no. When the heat of the moment, understanding he wants to clear the Frenchman, but I wonder if the Enosis Esports driver might need to call over the radio from the team to say, Angel, keep in mind you are leading your class right now. You're amongst elite drivers. Don't throw this away this early on, because Rene Rustler is only 2 places behind, and the Gazix Racing JRM driver, he has Miguel Leon behind him. Coincidentally, of course, a Enosis Esports machine, and well, right now Rustler finds himself just managing this race, whereas Adonis seems to be just in a bit of a bump and scrap at the moment. But still, that might be early nerves in this race. He just needs to cool things on down. Looking back to Kevin Smith, the interleader, well, he's ahead, but only by 2 places overall, ahead of John Ludbrook, who's there in 2nd. And then we've got a bit of a gap building to Andrew Fellows, who right now finds himself in the firm company of Logan Timblake and Eddie Theobald. And, well, how about this for a start to the race? We're 4 laps in, and Eddie Theobald has gone from 10th in Interclass all the way to 5th. He's found his way through. And to be fair, several drivers have made mistakes, but also credit where it's due. The British drivers had to pick up where others have dropped it. You've got to be in the right place to make the use of the opportunity. And right now, the number 99 driver here in the draft of Tim Blake, and I think he could be, of course, if one of his best performances of the season. Albeit it's early days yet, but right now, if he carries on at this rate or not, who says he couldn't be on the podium by the end of this one? Well, not us here in the commentary, but as he makes his way up towards that time in line, as he does so, well, right now, still plenty of time in this one, and he does have Broom and Noel Brown behind him. The two pros, I think, would love to clear these Inter drivers, as we do see a bit of a run deep there for Andrew Fellows offline now, and Logan Timblake says, "Oh, I have that, thank you," but there's contact between the two of them, and Theobald here, he's going to take one, he's going to take both of them. Oh, is he going to do so here? He's going to get done, as Timblake gets himself pointed. He's not too happy about that, but can Theobald here get the job done into the brackets over turn number 4 if he can? That's going to be into third place here. Well, I don't know what he's had for breakfast today, nor for dinner in the UK, but until you start right now, as he runs a bit too wide out for that, it's going to be a slowdown penalty and a half that he's picked up. He's going to burn quite quickly, albeit, in fact, he hasn't been awarded a slowdown penalty there. He's actually been allowed to keep going. Well, that will definitely be an off track that's going to count against him. But right now, Eddie Theobald is up into third place in the Interclass. Well, I never thought we'd see that today, but right now he's making the magic happen. Can he go chasing after Ludbrook and Smith? Well, you never know, to be fair. Perhaps qualifying was all a bit of a myth for him. But meanwhile, coming back to the GTE SimSport Xenon machine, the 44 of Fellows. Well, right now, after the altercation with Logan Timblake, he's going to be worried that Timblake's going to come after him very quickly, and he would be right about that, because Timblake right now wants to get on the inside of Matt Broom through turn number 10, but Broom says to him, just wait, don't push it, as they come down the hill, but he does want to push it right now to Timblake. You can see, look at the body language of the SimParty Racing driver. That's saying to Matt Broom in front, so it's saying to the HTS Racing driver, if you don't get a move on, I'm making this move very soon. You are wasting my time, and I've got an appointment with the guy in front of you right now. But from then, we look to Handa Yang, who makes his way in towards turn number 1, side by side here with Jordan Shamblin. Shamblin trying to come back here after the two had a bit of an altercation of the opening lap, and it's a pick up the inside for Cedric Boycia. In the end, he backs off, but you can see there Yang as well, compromise line as they come through the S's, and now on to the Retro Poster straight, and Yang go defensive all the way to the wall. They're so far over, and here comes Kevin Smith, and Smith right now in his Porsche 911. We're thinking about getting involved here in amongst the pro drivers. I suspect there's going to be the angel on his shoulder telling him, don't do it, Kevin, it's not worth it, and he would be right to not get involved right now, even though he's got Jan Lintz right behind him, and Lintz at this point will want the interleader out the way so he can start to play a role in this one. But it really is chop and change between them all right now, and everybody stepping on each other's toes here, whether it be in class or 30 across classes. But speaking of toe stepping, Logan Timblake has found his way past Matt Broom, and now here's Robin Noel Brown in the black GPX SimSport Onyx machine. The BMW trying to go around the outside at turn number 6, goes a bit deep there, that's not going to work out, and Matt Broom holds his ground for now, but understandably Noel Brown very keen to try and move forward here, moving to 13th place in the pro class. But whilst all this is happening, ladies and gentlemen, we promised you, of course, some replays from the start of the race, and here we go, a trip back in time to how it all started and the big moments of the first couple of laps. So as the field did get on the way, of course, it's Mirko Bortolotti who took us green with Angel Adonis alongside. A good start for Bortolotti, did drop Adonis to a degree, but what was very intriguing as they made their way into that braking zone for turn number 1 was how many cars dipped to the inside here. You can see Olivia Dean in particular going all in for that move right at the start, and what he tried to do at the Cube race, the team driver did gain some ground as a result. But there was drama further back for a few drivers. They all came roaring on down the hill, and in particular the biggest drama occurring for none other than what was Robin Noel Brown right at the start of the race. This is what happened to Noel Brown, and this was in the run down towards turn number 4. It was 3 wide in, Noel Brown on the outside, Timblake in the middle, Shamblin on the inside. Shamblin came across there, made contact to Timblake, and that had secondary contact to Robin Noel Brown by looks based on that camera. It also explains what happened to him. But then there was a separate incident just after that, and this was Jack Wells, the Beast Racing driver, who started all the way from the back of the field, but as he made his way down into the braking zone, when he came in as hot as a missile there, had to miss Brandon White's car, hit the barrier, oh my goodness, and in the end collecting James Bostock, also number 25 there, and that explains what exactly happened to none other than not John Lubbock there, but the 25 of Robin Aston being collected, and Robin Aston an innocent party and all that. Meanwhile, we had this for Jan Lintz. He was also involved in all the skirmishes here as he came on down. Of course, he was in the second group here as he made his way onto the brakes, and in the end, trying to take evasive action, went a little bit deep there, just making sure not to get it wrong, and he lost out to what was the Ford GT in particular of Cedric Boycia. So that's what all happened there at that quarter. Then looking on to lap number 2, we had this big month for Pinto Sombra Levente coming down towards turn number 1. And he was battling side by side here with one of the WP300 machines, but he got ahead and then lost the rear of the car. It went sideways. He collected it together, but that explains how he lost some places and lost up the places in particular to the GPX SimSport Xenon machines of both Ludbrook and Fellows. But it went a bit wrong a little bit later on. But we also had this for Logan Timblake, when it went very much sideways, heading down towards turn number 4. The SimParty Racing driver, albeit defending, they're battling with Kevin Smith. Oh, there's a bit of contact there between what's Abasek and Smith, and then Logan Timblake just got collected by the aftermath of it. You got a feel for the number 16 driver. That was an absolute nightmare nightmare moment for him, and he was completely innocent in that one, many would say. But then we had this for São Paulo, the Inter driver, your championship leader, of course. He made his way from turn 8 into 9 on that same lap, so already problems at turn number 1. And then what exactly happened here at turn number 9? And hit the rear of Brandon White's car, and that sent him around. So I think Levente, they're not expecting Brandon White to be going as slow as he was, but I suspect White might have been checking up for an instant in front of him. And then we did have, of course, a little bit more drama only moments later, and this was for Miguel Leon on lap number 8, so on your lead lap very recently, and we're going to come back to your live racing after this. And this was the Enosis Esports driver into turn 1, dived on the inside. I think he missed his brake marker, to be fair to him, and in the end decided to take the rallycross approach in order to avoid making contact. Well, great reactions there from the 293 driver from Palestine, and well, in the end, making sure not to get caught up and trigger off a domino effect. But back to your live racing we come back in absolutely perfect time, because there's still plenty more to go as your race leader now of Bortolotti started to pull away. The gap, 1.5 seconds, but he's got to manage this gap. He cannot afford to try and just bolt away into the distance, because he'll want to keep those tyres comfortable for as long as he can. Tim Perry, meanwhile, running second at the moment. He has found his way into that position ahead of Martin Stattmann. So Perry having made the move quite recently, in fact. And it was on lap number 6 that he's been able to move into that second place. And Perry right now definitely on a mission to chase down Bortolotti. And I wonder if Altitude for M Esports have told Perry today, you know what, go for it. See if you can chase him down. Don't think about the strategy, just think about seeing whether you can beat the Gazix racing machines on pace here. And if so, perhaps a different strategy might work out for him and the team. Further back, Martin Stattmann then gives way to Angel Donis, still your pro leader ahead of Olivia Dean. Albeit Olivia Dean, an elite driver here in 5th place, absolutely shadowing the Enosis Esports Corvette. And the Frenchman and the Spaniard right now, they seem to have come to a bit of a mutual agreement, which is not to annoy each other, but you could imagine, again, how close they are, and the fact that Dean is losing out to the top 3 in the elite class, where he's going to have to move into a fuel-saving strategy, a huge fuel-saving strategy. Alternatively, he is now going to think about passing that pro machine either on the road or in the pit lane early. We'll see what he's going to be able to do. But looking from there, Marinka Jonoski a little bit further back. Then we do have Rene Russler currently in at 7th place there, the second of your pros. We've got Benjamin Massey close behind him. Massey lost out into the opening corner versus Waters Russler, but he hasn't lost out too much. In the end, they have come back together on circuit, and Miguel Leon separated Massey from his teammate of Hettinger. So therefore, it does go to show you that right now, Inox Motorsport, they have seemed to have dialed out the issues they were having in the last couple of rounds for their drivers, and therefore now they are looking to be well within attacking distance for a double podium here today, with Mikhail Abasek meanwhile breaking away from Handy Yang, and he's trying to chase down Flavian Tiefri. Albeit Tiefri has just made his way through the apex to turn 1. Abasek's still got a bit of time before he gets there. Further back, John Shamblin here on the back of John Ludbrook, and well, it's a pro chasing down a Inter driver. I think Shamblin here is going to think about that move at some point, but of course he had a few scary moments so far, and when you have moments like that, you need to just be a little bit more careful, because of course instant points are starting to accumulate, and when we do not adjust the instant point limit for these races, it is a fixed limit, and when you do go with the instant point count of, if I remember, is 18, it may in fact be 17 for this season, it does mean you pick up a drive-through penalty, and a drive-through penalty here is going to cost you the best part of about 27 seconds. A very painful penalty at that, and one which is going to be very hard to make up for. But looking back to Brandon White, he's definitely been involved in a few moments so far in this race, albeit the ID5 competition can't be blamed necessarily for them, particularly after having the contact severe by Levente, and well, the ID5 competition driver right now still trying to chase after Justin Noel. But further back, in the interclass, we do see Brian Beardsworth there in the Rothmans livery tribute Porsche, just ahead of Key and Levente. Levente trying to look around the outside here, trying to go for outside to inside through turns 6 and 7, as we jump on board here with your 91 driver, and Key defending in the middle of the road, but it's all, of course, posturing at this point as they come downhill now in towards turn number 9. But you can see there the fact that he's not used to driving offline through these corners, and suddenly that muscle memory erodes very quickly coming through Pinahirio, and the fact that Levente had to correct himself twice there coming down the hill into the braking zone, not because he doesn't know the corner, but because he's offline on entry and he's not used to being offline there when you're coming from a blind summit at turn number 8 into that downhill braking zone, whereas if he was on his racing line, muscle memory would immediately kick in. That's the hard part of battling around here, is definitely in these GTEs, the fact that some of these corners really require you to know every different approach through that memory. But as they power their way on to the start-finish stretch, we're looking at Key's car. He's pulling away initially here in the draft. Now Levente is closing gradually, but it does seem as though there's a difference of setup here. I wonder whether the damage that Levente has picked up is costing him some straight line speed, and also potentially whether Key and the WePay 300T have opted to go with slightly less rear wing on the car, which will cost them speed in the middle sector, but it will help them considerably in the first and final sector. Levente there goes a little bit deep, runs onto the grass there, dirty, yeah, upsetting the front end of the car, and right now the privateer falling backwards just that little bit more. as he heads down the Red Poster straight. Logan Timblake still has Eddie Fearbold for close company, and in fact it does seem as though he's recently made the move on Fearbold for position, and now he'll try and break away here through the latter half of the lap. We take a quick look back as to how he's made that move in the first place. So this was coming out to turn number 3 for the Curve del Sol, and well, I think this was going to be a classic run up the inside. Timblake getting closer and closer, peeled to the inside. They made it very clear he was going for the move, and Fearbold opting not to react there, and I think hoping that perhaps Timblake would outbrake himself. Alternatively, the two will now just work together in order to move forward. But going from them, they're back to your live racing, and there you can see them still together with Timblake in that third place into spot. His next target is John Ludbrook, a significant way up the road as we show you the class standings. The gap to Ludbrook being none other than what is 5.7 seconds. Meanwhile, we come all the way back up the order to Ludbrook, and he still has the company of Jordan Chamberlain and Kwang Lee too. The two pro drivers were very close behind him, and they in turn are fighting over 10th place in their class as Kevin Smith sets a new fastest lap in the interclass of 1 minute 30.339. So Smith trying to raise the wick as much as possible here, and John Ludbrook not responding in kind with 31.559, but I wonder where Ludbrook meanwhile is perhaps just trying to take the pace out of his race a little bit and protect the car. But meanwhile, it won't be protect the car here for Kwang Lee too, as he gets a very good run out of the Curve del Sol. Two coming down the back stretch. And he's going to be on the inside here towards turn number 4. Now, what will Chamberlain do to respond? The answer is he just takes this race in line, goes the cut back there. Two goes a bit deep. Now there'll be two wide coming through turn number 5. Classic racing between these two. They give each other plenty of space as they head up the hill. And now in towards the corner. A little bit of touch between the two. Two trying to come across the road there to give themselves as much width. But Sean Chamberlain can't disappear. And as they come up the hill and over the rise, well, John Chamberlain there will hold on to that 10th. And Kwang Lee 2 will have to wait to be able to counter-attack again. As B.O. Justin and Brandon White queue up behind. But great racing between them. And Chamberlain now up into the top 10 of the pro class once more, but knowing he's got a bit more ground to make him started ninth in the class, but Jan Lintz is the man who holds into that position right now, and also he does know there's still plenty of time in the race distance. Coming back to Christian Ablasser and Adrian Block meanwhile. Well, here's Ablasser, and you can see 3.3 seconds behind is Adrian Block, but in front of Ablasser is Flavien Tieffry, the 5th place pro driver. And well, Tieffry right now trying to make sure that he doesn't do anything out of the ordinary as Ablasser tucks up the inside. I get the feeling right now the 195 Porsche is more focused on trying to stay with the elite driver to chase down Matthias Pettinger, as Vlok does still have Mark Hutchinson in the battle of the two Ford GTEs. Now coming through turn number 3 there, Vlok was a little bit wide at the Curve del Sol. That doesn't cost him too much time, but it definitely scrubs a bit more of the front right tyre off there, given the fact he's turning for a wider circumference, and therefore he's probably got a bit more steering angle put on to correct it, as Hutchinson just stays there. Now, of course, one of the big elements of this race will be fuel saving, albeit it doesn't mean that we can't expect drivers to battle, but the more fuel you can save early on in the race, naturally you will have a shorter pit stop in both stints. We are expecting this race to be carved up into what will theoretically be at least a 1-stop, if not a 2-stop, albeit if we did base it off of Road America, our other 90-minute race, we did have what was the 2-stop race there for a few drivers. Others did go for the 1-stop. It definitely was a split on strategies, with the 1-stop being the slower strategy in terms of natural stintage pace, but it was the quicker strategy overall. But meanwhile, here's a quick look to the inside by Hutchinson in towards turn 10. Vlok sees it coming. Now, will he be able to defend to the inside of Magulo? No, he just misses out there as they come back into the run, and now we ride back on the front camera here of the 270 car from Australia, and the HS Racing driver has to let this go, but a brilliant move there for Mark Hutchinson, and Vlok, to be fair, saw it coming and decided to play it respectfully as they now get ready to conclude the first 20 minutes of their race. A long way in this one, but Vlok right now, I think he'll be thinking, okay, well, he's past me, can I save some fuel off of him? As Hutchinson there's got no speed on the straight whatsoever. I wonder where he's lifted off there a little bit. Indeed, that's what it looks like. I'm not saying he is, to be fair. I think that's just a difference in speed, and also, to be fair, if we're talking about differences between GT3s and GTEs, these GTEs, they pick up a huge toe off of each other, and right now, brilliant battling. Well, I don't think Hutchinson was lifting. I think he was just not quick on the straight. I think Vlok, by comparison, is a bit quicker, and well, now Vlok will take that place back immediately there. Brilliant racing between the two of them, and going down in towards turn number 4. Well, Hutchinson's not going to be able to make the counter-attack this time. Cedric Boycier, meanwhile, makes his way on past Michael Avasek, and then behind them, Kevin Smith defending here versus Handa Yang. He's just been able to make the move on Yang coming out to turn number 3, so Yang losing overall position, and Jan Lintz is queued up behind. And intriguingly, Lintz has had a bit of a poor run. He's dropped backwards, in fact, as Lintz. And well, no, he's not dropped back because he's actually caught up now that my memory serves me correctly. He's caught up to the back of Handa Yang, who seems to have a bit of a slow previous lap. And will Kevin Smith fight it there? That's only going to bring the two of them closer. But here's a replay to explain exactly how that's happened. So this was the run down towards turn number 1, in fact. So Smith got this done at the opening corner, looked up the inside, and this is for overall position. And Yang in the end not as confident on the brakes there. Smith, you can see the confidence level went all in, albeit did go a bit deep as a result, so it did trigger off a further battle coming through turn 2 into 3, and this is where Yang then picked up a bit of speed, but of course the fighting between the two of them naturally brought Jan Lins into the equation. And coming down to that braking zone, when then Yang flashes his headlights, I think saying to Smith, you are costing us time, you do realise that. I think Smith right now more focused on his own race, to be fair. The Verano Academy driver wants to put as much daylight between himself and the rest of the interfield. But oh, there's contact! That's Smith into the wall as he goes scuttling from one side to the other, and I think in the overspeed there. Oh, what's the car? Oh, well, none other than Handy Yang tapping Smith on the rear, and that car is out of the race. It's as simple as that. That's going to be a tow to the pits, and John Ludbrook now takes the lead of the interclass. You couldn't make up this story. We've got plenty more time to go in this one, but right now we lose another interleader in the space of 22 minutes of racing. And well, right now for John Ludbrook, he's going to be looking at that and thinking, my goodness, what exactly has happened there, and what could I do to avoid it? We'll get a replay of that very shortly. Handy Yang as well has picked up significant damage as a result of that, and what an absolutely huge moment there. And Ludbrook right now absolutely pushing onwards, and Logan Timberlake at this point, he's going to realise that Sonny's up into second place here in the interclass, and he's got to keep pushing right now. He is quicker than Ludbrook by 2 tenths a lap, with Eddie Theobald still staying with him. And this is the dark horse driver in the interclass today. Theobald has come out of nowhere with this pace and going from 10th to 3rd in the interclass. To be fair, he has benefited from some of the chaos that's happened in the class in the early stages, but also that he's just finding that pace out of nowhere right now, albeit I think he's always had it. It just didn't work out in qualifying whatsoever. Well, it's been definitely a bit of a dramatic moment, as meanwhile, Mirko Bortolotti is being caught up to by Tim Perry. Perry is moving on here, and I think there's some sense to be made when we were saying earlier about the fact how Altitude 3M just told Perry, go in for it today, don't hold back. And I suspect, yes, they have, as he makes his way on to the next run of quarters here, because the gap now is half a second. And well, of course, the one thing that Perry can now do, he can choose whether he wants to back off slightly and save some fuel and some tyres, or whether he decides to really turn things up to the maximum. And we've not seen this so far this season when we've had Mirko Bortolotti on the grid, where a driver has been able to stay this close. We did see potential flashes of it, of course, in Mexico when Callum Lux really went on the attack midway through the race and tried to chase it down until the altercation between himself and Martin Stattmann in the stadium there, which saw what was Lux going on around. But right now, Tim Perry definitely is trying to do what Callum Lux may not have had the chance to do, and that is see if he can put the Ferrari driver under some pressure. But looking back here to Albert Prisch, he's under some pressure to pass the pro drivers in front of him. And, well, I won't say under pressure too many more times, otherwise we'll get a copyright strike from Queen, I suspect, the band, if you didn't know, with that wonderful song Under Pressure. But as he does make his way up towards turn number 10, well, right now, the Spaniard here hoping he can find a way in between the 3rd and 4th place batters of the pro class. It's definitely going to be a bit of a challenging one for him, given the fact that those two, I think, are so ingrained in following each other, and Prisch has now got to try and find a way of interrupting the flow. But behind, Adrian Vlot and Mark Hutchinson there, still absolutely nose to tail together, as Hutchinson there a little bit later on the brakes in towards Jinsao corner, and we'll notice Adrian Vlot reapplying the brakes mid-apex there. I wonder if Vlot's perhaps struggling a little bit with brake temperatures at the moment at Ford GT, because it doesn't seem like he's as comfortable. And Hutchinson actually had to respond there by backing off a little bit on the apex to make sure he didn't hit the rear of the HS Racing 1 car. Well, a bit odd there. You don't normally brake mid-apex in a GTE unless you straighten the steering wheel very quickly, as otherwise it will cause the rear of the car to slide loose. But Vlot right now, I think he feels comfortable. Brake lights on there again. It might be his braking technique, to be fair. He might be trading off and then just reapplying the brakes slightly to help get the nose to pitch more. He might be running a bit of a rearward brake bias and hoping he can lean into the brakes more as he goes through the corner compared to other drivers. It is a driving style that is valid, of course. Our drivers can choose how they set up the car. This is an open setup series, and Vlot definitely might be setting up the car right now, where he does a lot of the work on the brakes, and how he comes off the brakes as well becomes a big factor. But what a big factor the interclass was that big moment for Kevin Smith and Handy Yang only months ago. And here's a replay, ladies and gentlemen, to explain. And, well, we catch it literally as the contact started, but Kevin Smith there practically disintegrated from barrier to barrier like a ping pong ball there. The Verano Academy driver will probably be absolutely shaken by that, and Yang immediately going sideways on the exit of that run. Let's take a look back to what exactly happened. Can we get the on-board potentially as they made their way through? No, we get a closer camera, and I think Yang there just gets it too close in the overspeed, and unfortunately hitting the rear of Smith's car, and then he touched the grass under braking there to turn the 1. That's what sent him sided sideways. So Handy Yang there making a mistake on the braking of his own volition. I think that contact definitely the result of essentially what was just getting too close. Here's the on-board. Let's just watch and listen in. And it was the overspeed there, and I don't think Yang expected to get that close too soon, and in the end, by the time he did get close, it was too late. If he'd swerved, he would have made the contact even worse, and he might have even propelled himself into the barrier as well. So in the end, I think he had to just literally rest his laurels and go straight into the back of Smith at that point. And well, unfortunately, that's definitely going to be an instant which I suspect, based on the camera angles we have seen, whereby I think the stewards are going to come down quite hard on that one. But to be fair, when the commentary booth, we don't have every angle, every bit of data. That's what the stewards take a look at if they so desire the need to. But meanwhile, as we do come back to your live pictures, plenty more fighting going on here between Matthias Pettinger and Albert Prisch. And Prisch decided now he's got to pull the trigger on this move as we get closer to the end of the first half an hour of racing. And when you're looking around the outside turns 6 and 7, that's not going to come forward for him. And now he's got to wait a little bit longer. But you can see Christian Ablas are close inside Flavien Thierry. They are being brought into this. And that might just turn up the timer there on Prisch a little bit and say to him, if you don't get a move on, then somebody else is going to have to. As we do say hello there to a fan of Renosis Esports, and that is none other than Oya Jugaziria. I do believe, and that might be the worst pronunciation of a username that you've ever heard, good sir, and if so, I do apologise. And, well, hope you're doing well and cheering on at Enosis. And indeed, we do know there's quite the fan group for Enosis Esports tuning in today. It's all over their socials, which is absolutely brilliant. A big thank you to Enosis Esports for promoting this event. But as we do see our drivers make the way towards the end of this lap, well, 18 laps in, and whilst things have started to calm down a little bit, and we have lost a few drivers since the start of this race, including Chad Henson, who was a non-starter due to a technical issue, and also a couple others. Well, we'll come to that fault shortly, because here comes what is Prisch up the inside. Matthias Pettinger, and in the end he'll make that move stick very comfortably there. That was absolutely textbook. Meanwhile, Jan Lintz now looking for a move here on the other member of Inox Motorsport, of Mikael Abasek, and well, the German driver there makes it happen. Has to go a bit deep into the braking zone, and as they come down the hill, we look back from the rear of the 111, but can your German driver here right now hold on and get it done? Because coming on to the Retro Aposta straight here, of course, Abasek now 2 tenths back at closing, building up that speed. The Porsche just as quick as the Corvette in a straight line, and we're onto the brakes, and Abasek does not fight it. In fact, you notice there he lifted off about 20 metres from his normal braking zone, and I think Abasek decided to play the bigger picture game, which is work with the drivers in front, save every litre of fuel you can, or every point of a litre, and you might be able to make up places later in the race by just simply being the one who spends a lot less time stationary in the pit lane. And remember, every second you spend stationary in the pit lane, it does cost you tyre temperature. It costs you so much more than just simply time in the pits, because you've got to get those tyres back up to temperature. Even if you're running the same tyres of which you started the race on, they all go for a cooling phase the longer you sit stationary in the pits. As we do leave these drivers alone for a brief moment, we come all the way back to the front, and as we do, here is Mirko Bortolotti, the Gazix Racing MTM driver, who right now ahead of Tim Perry. 4 tenths is the gap, but Perry is there with him, and Martin Stattmann 1.5 seconds back. The pace between these 3 drivers, it's a 30.079 for Bortolotti, a 30.146 for Perry, a 30.161 for Stattmann. They are all equaling each other here right now, and I wonder whether Gazix Racing MTM are now thinking about split strategies here, whereby Stattmann is essentially the cover driver for Bortolotti. So the idea being, if Bortolotti pits, then alternatively Stattmann will either pit before him or pit after him, and that puts Perry under more pressure, because he now has to deal with the driver behind as much as he's dealing with the driver in front. The only thing is, with Stattmann being almost 2 seconds behind the leaders at this point, understandably that weakens the amount of pressure he can put onto Tim Perry. He really needs to be within a second in order to be able to do that, but I wouldn't be surprised the BMW might be right now falling off the pace a little bit if it's in that dirt yet, and that's why he's backing off, or having to run that 1.5 to 2 seconds back in order to make sure he is not cooking the front end of the car. Meanwhile, cooking up a store over here, René Russler, your 3rd place pro driver, holding on to this position ahead of Albert Prisch. He's got a queue of machines there. It's a mixture of elites and pros behind him, including none other than Matthias Pettinger, Christian Ablas, and Flavien Thierry. But further back, we've got 2x2 here. This is not what is Noah's Ark. This is race to its finest, because that's going to be John Ludbrook side by side with Brandon White. White trying to go around the outside here for overall position. Ludbrook going defensive. He is, of course, your inter-leader right now. And will Jordan Shamlin trying to go around the outside? Surely he's not going to get this done. If he does so, well, I'll tell you what, if I ever get to meet him in person one day, I'll be buying him a beer myself, because that's not a move you do at Pinahero Corner. But Jordan Shamlin does do it. He goes all the way around the outside of Brandon White there, using what's the space, finding some grip that doesn't normally exist, and in the end with Jordan Shamblin making the move there up in a 20th place or 9th in the pro class. My good lord, what a move. I don't even think Brandon White saw that coming. There's Quantity 2 queues up behind, and so does Handy Yang. And right now, the WP300 Esports pair of drivers will be watching this, as will Robin Noel Brown, who's also on the back of the script, and thinking, right, what's the next part in the story? Well, from then, we come to a 3 wide here, coming down the Retroposter straight. That's Albert Presh on the right-hand side of your picture. They both clear there. What's Christian Ablas? So they're still 2 wide, though, Presh and Matthias Pettinger. Pettinger on the outside, and in the end, Presh will just squeeze a little bit ahead there. It's a lovely move to get it done, but now look at this. Pettinger looks one way, then looks the other. Flash of the headlights there from Christian Ablas. So that's to say to Matthias Pettinger, I'm not fighting you. Take your place on the outside of the road. And, well, in the end, Matthias Pettinger only does that last moment. You can understand he does not want to be behind that Anosis Esports car. I think right now he's got his sights on Rene Rüssler. I think he thinks he can beat Rüssler, but the problem is the 209 is holding him up. Now, of course, when we use the words holding up, this is not illegal. There's a lock-up there. There's both lock-ups. Pettinger with a huge lock-up. Me or Christian Ablas with a very small one, but he gets it under control and makes that move happen. And suddenly Matthias Pettinger drops back, and now Flavien Thierry is going to get on the back of this. As we jump aboard here with the ID4 competition, Porsche has got more chips in its windscreen than most other cars. He makes up the hill, and as he does so in that draft here, right now so close. Michael Lloyd, it's only a 10th between himself and Pettinger, and what this rate of knots, I would imagine he's going to look for the move into turn 1. We know this Porsche is very strong with the brakes compared to its peers in the GT category, but right now he falls back a little bit, looks to the inside, gives himself some breathing room, and decides to back off that. I think it's the right move for the ID4 competition driver, and surely he's got to be starting to think now more about strategy the deeper he goes into this. Meanwhile, speaking of strategy, we have had Eddie Fearbold come into the pit lane for his one and only strategic stop. Kevin Smith, of course, he has been in the pit lane, and I think the car is still being looked at for Smith at the moment, at least, with regards to the damage that we picked up after that huge incident on the start for the straight. Well, we'll get you confirmation of that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. But as they all headed around, well, we do say hello to a few more of you there, cheering on Jordan Shamblin, including none other than Daryl R1W, says good pass, Jordan, and also I think a bit of banter going on from Max Chambers there with regards to what you said about Jordan Shamblin, but what a pass from him, no doubt about it. And meanwhile, further back in the Interclass, well, here comes Bruno Key looking up the inside of Andrew Fellows. This will be for fourth place in Inter, and in the end, no way through. Craig Tillotson, meanwhile, by the way, under the radar, has snuck his way up into second place in the Interclass. The Verado Academy driver, the leading one of them, of course, with it all going wrong for Kevin Smith, and the car having been serviced, although something tells me that Smith right now is back out on circuit. Well, what we can see is there a little bit of a look from Brian Beardsworth, can't quite find it. Fellows tries to also make a move. He's not going to find it. Bruno Key sits to the back of this group, and Tillotson has absolutely been creeping up the order little by little. And, well, Tillotson not wasting any time here and definitely looking for what will be his first podium of the season. He's only had one top 5, but he go the distance to the podium. We will see. And, well, here's a quick replay, ladies and gentlemen, some of the big moments from Craig Tillotson, including what was a move on Andrew Fellows. Well, that was Fellows going deep there, and in the end he had to go too wide through the centre ace. So how exactly did he get the move done? Fellows had a poor run coming out the corner, and that's what Tillotson used to get ahead there on lap 21. So the previous lap, it was a drag race between the two of them as they came down towards the braking zone for turn number 4. And Tillotson on the inside in that Ferrari, he was always going to be safe, and Fellows in the end tried to fight it on through, but went deep, and that enabled Brian Beardsworth to get ahead. So Craig Tillotson there doing a brilliant job, and Brian Beardsworth under his visor, we're saying, thank you, Craig, you've helped me out as well. Tillotson, of course, making some great progress earlier on. And we did see this, of course, on Logan Timblake back on lap number 19. And, well, this was Tillotson make his way up the rise. I think it was Logan Timblake make his way into the pit lane, unless I'm mistaken. As Tillotson came on through. Where was Timblake at all of this? And, well, the answer, I believe there's been a technical issue for Logan Timblake because we have lost him from this race, at least for now, unfortunately. If so, well, it's a sad day that we have lost Logan Timblake by the looks of things, ladies and gentlemen, because he was making his way back up the order. So there's been a technical retirement for the Sim Party Racing driver by the sounds of things. And meanwhile, as we come back to live racing, well, that's going to be a reverse Moses manoeuvre there, but Quantity 2 is going to go way too late on the brakes there as he rejoined and tried to make the move happen of Robin Noel Brown. And Robin Noel Brown and also John Ludbrook involved in all this. Ludbrook, meanwhile, well, you're into leader. This is not comfortable viewing for Ludbrook as, meanwhile, he comes across to the inside, locks up massively on the front right brake there, coming in towards turn number 10. And Quantity 2 is going to go around the outside to the inside over here. Well, brilliant heroics being put on by the 120 Porsche driver. But John Ludbrook right now, you can imagine if he's pretty much thinking about this race, and thinking to himself, why do I need to be battling with all these guys? He doesn't need to. He doesn't want to be battling with them. I think he's being swallowed up by them right now, all the pros around him, and it's not comfortable viewing for John Ludbrook at the GPX Sports Z on team, because right now anybody makes a small mistake and it could all could go terribly wrong. Meanwhile, speaking of a driver it's going right for, at least for now, Mirko Bortolotti and Tim Perry, they're still only 6 tenths apart. Martin Stattmann is now 1.8 seconds back, with further what is 3.6 seconds to Angel Adonis. Your leader in the pro class, fourth overall, head of Olivia Dean. Dean's still with him there. Olivia Dean has been glued to the back of him since lap number 4. So therefore, I think these two now have come to a mutual agreement. They're going to run together so long as they maintain the pace. And the Q Racing team driver here will try to use Angel Adonis as a pace car in order to bring him closer to the field at the front later on in the race if he can. Because the gap from Dean to Stattmann right now is the best part of 4.2 seconds. And it's not the biggest gap, but at the same time as well, it's not the smallest one. And that's always going to hurt a little bit. We know he's got to make up several seconds in the pit lane. Speaking of the pit lane, we have had Virgilio Garcia come into the pits for a pit stop. We believe that might be his one and only scheduled stop for the day. So some more drivers getting pit stops out the way early, but that most likely may push them onto a 2-stop strategy. As a result, we are going to keep our eyes peeled because we do show you the number of pit stops that drivers have done so far. Well, as you can see right now, your top 28 have all yet to pit. Whereas Eddie Theobald, Brian Beardsworth and also Kevin Smith have all pitted, albeit Smith of course into the pits after that huge shunt with the contact down the start finish straight, and Brian Beardsworth meanwhile came in a bit prematurely. I think he did have a bit of damage to the front of his car, and that's why he opted to come in. He has taken that strategic stop. It hasn't been forced upon him, but he's decided to clear it as quickly as he can. But if he is one stop in, it means that he is doing the best part of what will be approximately 62 minutes in a single stint, which given the fuel tank load that they're allowed, I think that's going to be a very hard task. I think he has relegated himself onto a 2-stop strategy as a result. As we'll try to make the way onto another lap here in the interclass. Well, meanwhile, we do look all the way into the midst of your pros and elite drivers, particularly what is the pack behind Albert Parish from 9th all the way through to 13th, which is Parish, Russler, also Ablasa, Pesinger and Tiefri. And what any driver in this group right now, I think, would like to make a pit stop when they can. But the problem is they don't want to lose the draft of the car in front for the fuel saving they can do. It is close between them all. Flavio Tiefri watching this, and then this could be his opportunity to return to the podium in the pro class. He's only had one podium in the class this season. It was back in round number 2, back when he was an Inter driver, but of course his results were upgraded as part of his class upgrade to where he would have finished in the pro class. So we didn't take the Inter points away with him. We gave those points to drivers who would have earned it as a result of Tiefri not being in the class, quote unquote, in those rounds. And therefore Flavio Tiefri right now trying to chase that second podium of the season if he can. Well, it's Rene Rosler who's the man who seems to be the key to unlocking it at the front of this group as they head in towards turn 1, and all 5 drivers there right now, all running in sequence, all 9, they can't afford to make any mistakes. For Adrian Vlock, after his battling with Mark Hutchison earlier on, the epic battling between those two, now Vlock has gained the upper hand. He has started to make the breakaway by 2 seconds, but of course this could be temporary for him, depending on what's going to happen on the strategy here, and also any mistakes that are made, but they are your highest running Ford GTEs right now, with Cedric Boyce, the 3rd member of the Ford family here today in terms of the running order in 17th place. And the other Ford, we have lost it. It's none other than Jack Wells, who retired only a couple laps into the race. But Brandon White battling here with none other than John Shamblin and Handa Yang. And well, 3 Porsches go in towards the centre S's. 3 Porsches come out of it. It's not a joke. We're serious here. It's coming out of the pit lane. That's going to be Justin Noel, who's going to go a lap down here. This is not going to be comfortable for Justice. He's going to take to the grass there to make sure he gets out the way of it all. And well, Shamblin there on the inside. Brandon White on the outside. And meanwhile, here comes Yang, looking up the inside. And well, White goes a little bit deep there. And Handa Yang will take the place off him as a result. So Brandon White falls back into the procession now as he tucks into the toe in towards turn 6 and 7. But the ID4 competition driver now falling back into 11th place here, but having started in 14th in the pro class, he won't be too upset about that, as that's Yang going very tight to the inside there in towards turn number 8. A bit of a different line there. I'm not sure if that was defensive or whether that was his intentional line. If it was by intent, well, he's made it work. That's putting a lot of pressure on that front left tyre. It seems as though Handa Yang there, perhaps the way he's got the car set up, he just prefers a much more aggressive line into those apex. And to be fair, in a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, you can be more aggressive on corner entry compared to front-engine rear-wheel drive. All these machines, of course, excluding the BMW mid-engine rear-wheel drive, including the Porsche, which in modern history, if you want a bit of a trivial pursuit, a pub quiz question, in terms of the unique thing about this Porsche 911 RSI, it is the only modern Porsche race car at the GT level in at least the last 15 years, which has been mid-engine rear-wheel drive rather than rear-engine rear-wheel drive, and that's to meet the requirements of the World Endurance Championship GTE specification. As the drivers do make the way into another lap, right now that fact not important here for these 3 drivers as a win equal machinery, and all looking to try and get the upper hand on each other, but nobody right now able to find a way in at the end. From them making their way back to the very front. Bortolotti still ahead of Perry. They're getting close to the halfway point of this race. Strategy now is going to start to move towards the forefront of the mind, as meanwhile Stattmann 2.1 seconds behind them, falling away just that little bit more, and the Kazakhs Racing MTM drivers starting to feel as though this might be the time for pit stops. But speaking of pit stops, Bruno Key has come into the pits from at the time what was none other than fourth place in the interclass. So he's called it early, albeit he is effectively now a lap down on the leaders at least for now, but that gives you an idea that we are entering that pit stop territory and how close we're getting to it. We've had Virgilio Garcia in, we've had Justin Owen, and now also we've had Bruno Key in. Will we see anybody else coming soon in order to go for a slight offset on the pit strategy, where the second stint is a little bit longer? In terms of Key's car being serviced, they are putting fuel in the car, they are putting a fuel tank in, and tyres are being changed on it. So I suspect a few drivers in the interclass are going for the tyre changes, whereas others may not. And well, that tyre change is definitely going to cost a lot of time, but if you feel more comfortable with the car and fresh tyres, that could help you out whilst you've got them warmed up. Flavien Thierry, meanwhile, he won't be thinking about the tyres right now as we ride aboard here with the 195. And well, definitely that windscreen right now, I think they are going to have to clean it in the pit lane before he goes racing once again. As he comes through turn number 4 in towards 5, and Matthias Pettinger is holding him at bay. But of course, no driver wants to really fight in this group. They're all siphoned in slipstream off of the next car. They're all trying to fuel save. And the one driver who wants to get away from the ball, if he can, is Albert Prisch at the very head of it all. But he is being kept honest first and foremost by none other than Rene Russler. But through the middle sector they go, and we can see there Flavien Thierry just back it off a little bit through 89, give himself a bit more space, and also give himself visibility of the next corner apex. That's the problem in these machines, and the fact they have quite restrictive viewing ports by default, particularly in the Ford GTE. When you've got another car right in front of you by the tune of what is 3 to 4 attempts, that blocks your visibility even more, and that's why you do fall back a little bit. Of course, the closer you are, the more likelihood you have of making a move. So it's always a bit of a trade-off. Up the hill they go, and this point it's going to be flat out all the way as they get ready for the next tour of the circuit. And we're going up to Benjamin Massey. He has got Mirko Bortolotti behind him. Bortolotti has caught up, however, intriguingly, Angel Ordonez, the gap between Massey and Ordonez has come down. It's now down to 1.5 seconds. Ordonez on that last lap was 2 tenths slower. I wonder whether we're potentially seeing Benjamin Massey now get the upper hand here. They're both in the Corvette. Alternatively, Ordonez is backing off to save some fuel. And Olivier Dean has just passed Ordonez as well. We'll get a replay of that very shortly to see how that happened. But I think that might be the explanation, that Ordonez has decided to back off for a little bit. And Massey now finds himself in a bit of an interesting situation where he's got to make a decision. Does he now hound Ordonez as quickly as he can, if he can, or does he now really think about what is the strategic play here? And Mirko Bortolotti, meanwhile, I think would like to clear Massey if he can sooner rather than later, just because of the fact Olivier Dean at this point might be now starting to pull away a little bit, and that's who Bortolotti is chasing after for fourth place in the elite class. But here's a quick look back to that move made by Olivier Dean. So this was down the start for the straight here, and it looks like it will be a conventional move that Dean made. So it was over to the right-hand side there for Ordonez, and Dean just simply took to the inside and said, right, I'm taking this off of you. I've been patient. I've waited for the best part of 20 or so laps, and almost a little bit of touch between the two of them there. So I don't think Ordonez scripted that out in terms of letting it go. I think he wanted Dean to get a move on there if he was going to go for it. And, well, understandably, that near miss on contacts, that could have proven quite fatal for their race. As they get ready then to go on to the next lap, neither one of them defected to the pit lane. Well, Dean right now has got Ordonez so close behind him at this point that Dean is under pressure. Tap to the rear of the car there for Olivier Dean from Ordonez by looks of things. Well, right now, Angel Ordonez definitely more confident on the braking there. And where's that confidence going to be misplaced later on? Meanwhile, well, the gap between the two leaders now 3 tenths down the Red Poster Straight. Opens back up to 4 tenths. And that's the Concertina effect in full motion. But Bortolotti definitely not getting rid of Tim Perry. Perry at this point, I think right now may have some growing confidence here. This could be his strategy-wise to win. Well, we'll have to see what happens between them. Meanwhile, further back, John Shamlin and Handy Yang there, still nose to tail together. As off camera, Kevin Smith has found his way past Brian Beardsworth and now moved up into 30th overall. But here comes Shamlin on the inside of Yang, down towards turn number 1. And as he goes all in, Yang there tries to outbrake his rival, just about does so, but goes a little bit deep here into the center areas. And we'll come on down here now. Shamlin just tucks into the toe. Well, what's he got as an answer for this one as he rolls his way off? Going down the Retro Aposta straight. Shamblin's been close before, but he's not been able to quite make the move happen. Whereas we're going to be at the halfway point of the race by the time they end this battle. And we're coming down towards turn number 4. Shamblin just waits there. Can you see in his rear view TV camera? One is Brandon White's car waited to get in the wings. But here comes Shamblin looking for a move. Squeezes to the inside of 5. And well, Yang's not going to defend that too hard because he'll want the inside in towards turn number 6. That's the better defensive spot. And in the end, Handy Yang's going to make Shamblin go all the way round. Can Shamblin get this done? He's going to almost do it in towards turn number 8. Can Shamblin commit to it? He's done some incredible moves already. He's gone from outside to inside this time towards turn number 9. And well, last time it was inside to outside. And well, he's going to make it move. John Shamblin moves up into 8th place in the Pro Class. Give him some space. He'll go for it anyway. And Handy Yang looks up the inside. He's going to come back at him here. But Shamblin's got the defense now into Magulo corner. But is it enough? As they're going to be too wide coming down the hill. It's brilliant battle between these two. Great respect being shown. Shamblin is still there on the inside. But Yang just beats him to the braking zone. And out of Jinsao corner. Well, Yang will now be thinking to himself, I've got a drag race to run. But does he at this point potentially come into the pit lane? That might be a strategy he can do here. If he's planning to come in soon, if he comes in now, he can throw Shamblin off. All this group are coming together. I wonder if we're going to see 1 or 2 peel into the pit shortly. And the answer is no. None of them come in. Adrian Vlock has made his way to the pit lane, meanwhile, just up the road from them. As meanwhile, that is going to be Justin Noel with the blue flags waving, stepping aside. And that releases Kwangli 2 to get involved in this group. But right now, John Shamblin and Handy Yang, 2 real stars here today in the Pro Class. And whilst they may be fighting for 8th place on the road, I can tell you one thing right now to them. They're fighting for the right to be the winner of this battle. And it'll feel special to them as Brandon White now thinks, okay, it's time for me to get involved versus the number 175 in front of me. And then thinks, actually, no, I'm not close enough to do so. And if I wait a little bit longer, perhaps they'll both take each other off the road for me and I can pick up 2 for the price of 1. It's always a full process, of course, when you're racing this close between 2 drivers in front of you. Can you potentially see some of the mistakes they made? As White looking up the inside there, and meanwhile, 2 trying to go all the way to the outside to cut back up the hill in towards turn number 8. That's not going to work out. And we do see that Yang now going deep again. Shamblin looking one way then the other. He's trying to set up around the outside pass there. All 2 this day right now. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gents. Well, I said I'd buy him a drink earlier. I'll be buying him dinner at that rate as he comes down in towards turn number 10. And right now, the Disney Motorsports driver, well, he's looking every which way to the other. And to be fair, he's paid to race here today at the Interlagos circuit. He's going to use every millimetre of the tarmac. And I love that logic. As meanwhile, we come back up the order for a brief moment to Olivia Dean, who has still got Angel Donas breathing down his neck, but Benjamin Massey is catching little by little. He has dropped Jornowski over the last couple of laps, only at 10th at a time, but Donas, we're looking in his rearview mirrors and realising now that is a pro car approaching him, not another elite driver. That will not be comfortable viewing for Alosis Esports when they want Adonis to try and make it 4 wins this season in order to keep his hopes alive in chasing this man in the championship down. Massey, of course, the pro championship leader, but if he picks up the win here today, then the work will be practically doubled for Adonis, given the fact he has multiple non-finishes that are counted towards his scores this season. He needs every point and he needs Massey to finish as far back as possible. Going down the hill through Magulo corner. Well, right now, that's going to be the back of their minds, but in the forefront of their minds will be the battle in, as Kevin Smith is now in for a strategic stop for the day. And the one-stop strategy definitely does seem to be the play, but nobody right now wants to go into the pit lane if they could help it, and I suspect this is through the fear of essentially coming out into traffic, particularly for your lead cars. But what exactly is happening in the interclass off camera? Well, right now, Craig Tillotson is still ahead of Andrew Fellows, who is 6 tenths behind him, and then they do have a sizable gap to Eddie Theobald, who has pitted. So therefore, it is Ludbrook, Tillotson and Fellows who have yet to pit, and the theory would be that Eddie Theobald might be leaving ahead of both of what is Tillotson and Fellows after that pit stop. Shamblin here looking up the inside of Yang. Going for turn number 10. He's still trying to make this work, is John Shamblin. Now he's looking around the outside. Where's Magulo corner, but backs off there. The camera angle making you think they're too wide when they're not. And we'll now back it off in towards what is Jinsao 9. That is going to be too close for comfort to go around the outside there. But the mother of all runs up the hill here. And in fact, he's going to be looking to the inside immediately as Yang says, no, the door's not open there. You're not going for it here. And Shamblin's saying, yes, I am. He's getting so close at the moment. A 10th is the gap, if that. And if he gets any closer at this point, I think they'll be running it all the way to the barrier. As they get ready to go in towards turn number 1. Yang comes across. Shamblin switches back to the inside. And John Shamblin right now looking left, looking right. He goes up the inside nice and tight. And now trying to go round the outside. He does get it done. And Handy Yang doesn't quite have it. But now going back down the hill here in towards what is the Coverdale Soul. Can Yang get the run back here? Right now putting his head down. And I can tell you one thing, he's really willing the car along here as he looks the outside. Shamblin immediately goes defensive. And well, they're fighting for 8th place on the road. But my good lord, this is absolutely titanic battle. Shamblin goes defensive. Brandon White thinks about it. Surely Brandon White's going to get involved this time. He sees the doors wide open. He'd be foolish not to, and he's going to go for it as they make the way out the hill for ID4 competition. The 172 driver here wants to go around the outside. Yang now goes defensive versus him. This by Shamblin a bit bit of respite, but now for White. Can he get it cut back to the inside? No, he can't, as now here comes Quality 2, Yang's teammate, who says, right, if you're going to get involved with him, I'm getting involved with you. And suddenly all the gloves are off between these four. But their battling does stop for a brief moment as they roll their way out towards turn number 10. But goodness me, what a fight. And while I suspect it's not over yet. Meanwhile, into the pit lane, we do have Marinko Jornovski, Rene Rüssler, and also Matthias Pettinger. They all come in. So the fuel tanks are starting to dry out. And with that, it does mean more pit stops are very likely soon. But the big pit stops we are waiting for at the very front, of course, Bortolotti and Perry. Which one of these two is going to flinch first? In theory, Bortolotti should be the one to flinch first, if we presume. And the fact that Ferrari hasn't got the fuel-saving capacity of Perry's Corvette. However, do keep in mind that Tim Perry has had to push to get up to Bortolotti, and therefore he's only really had the best part of the last 10 laps to be able to do the fuel-saving. Otherwise, he's having to push previously. Meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, Mikhail Abasek, Quality 2 and Brandon White have all come into the pit lane. And there's Matthias Pettinger making his way out of the pits now. Where does he emerge? Well, that's going to be very close there to Robin Noel Brown. They're going to be practically side by side, albeit Noel Brown has yet to pit, it should be pointed out. So therefore, that is going to put him out of sequence. And, well, that's the risk, of course. You don't want to come out behind a driver who's yet to pit because they could cost you time. And as we do see Pettinger make his way down the road, no tyres being changed for Matthias Pettinger. It's a purely fuel stop. And all these drivers who pitted have gone for a pure fuel stop. And understandably, as Bortolotti's in from the lead of the race, he comes on now. Martin Stattmann follows him in. Now, this is the critical pit stop. Olivia Dean also comes in. Adonis stays out. Massey stays out. Perry is the big name that stays out right at the top. So Perry will lead his first lap of this season. And as he does so, right now, can the Altitude Rib Esports driver, can he surprise everybody here today? Can he defeat the man who has proven to be undefeatable so far this season? And well, right now, the 283 driver, I don't think he's going to be thinking about that. All he's got to be thinking about, and the team will be on the radio too about this, is Tim just focus on getting the job done. Worry about it after the pit stop. As meanwhile, Bortolotti leaving the pit lane already. So do the drivers behind him, as we do see they're side by side with the 44 coming out the pits. That is going to be none other than Andrew Fellows, who has to back off there on pit exit, a lap down effectively, but battling for third place in the interclass. Such is the nature of the field now and how diversified it's become in terms of the spread. And will Fellows emerges just behind Craig Tillotson, but that confirms that Craig Tillotson right now is in second place in the interclass. Tillotson is on course for his first podium of the season, and John Ludbrook's in the pit lane. How close is that going to bring him to Ludbrook? And the thing that's also happened here, why is Eddie Fearbold so far back, I hear you ask? Here is Fearbold, is because he took tyres in the pit stop. He does have much fresher tyres, and the theory is he will be able to close down Fellows and Tillotson in a late stage of this race, as will Bruno Key, as will Brian Beardsworth. They've all got brand new tyres on those cars when they pitted, but the thing is they've cost themselves so much time in the inset. Meanwhile, whilst all that's happening, what about Perry? He's into the pit lane, here he comes. So all these pit stops are coming to a close. I suspect Adonis, Massey, Leon and Tiefri will all be in very shortly to complete the pitted order, as we do see there Ludbrook leaving the pit lane, so your interleader almost a lap down. There's Leon coming on through. In fact, Miguel Leon's going to go another lap. And that's crazy how much fuel he's been able to save. But where is Bortolotti? Here he is. Can we get a blimp camera? Yes, we can. So therefore, that gives you an idea of where he is in relation to what would be Perry, who gets ready to leave the pit lane shortly. The car's being serviced at the moment. It's almost done with the fuel stop. There is Tim Perry waiting to go. Meanwhile, where is Bortolotti? Here he comes. He's hidden by the grandstands, but you can see slivers of his car. Perry there makes his way out the pit lane. This is going to be very close. I think Tim Perry's got ahead, ladies and gents, when he comes through. What is the pit lane exit at turn number 2? And there is the Delta. You can see the gap has changed, and it is going to be Tim Perry, who now is the effective race leader by a gap of only what will be about 1.7 seconds, coming down in towards turn number 4. Perry has taken the lead strategically, but can now he hold off Bortolotti for the remaining 36.5 minutes. At this point, both drivers are on the same tyres they started this race on. You suspect they've got fuel to go to the end of the race, unscathed in terms of fuel capacity, and understandably, it's now going to be who's the quicker driver when all they've got to do is keep it on the road and clear the traffic in front of them. Perry, of course, has track position. That's always valuable, but Mirko Bortolotti, we have yet to see him in this position this season where he's had to chase somebody down at the end of the race, but we suspect with his real life and also sim racing experience that he is not going to simply roll over and let this one go in that Ferrari, but he'll have to operate within the confines of a Ferrari that definitely right now is picky on its tyre temperatures, but should he get this right, it's going to be a titanic fight right at the close of this race. Miguel Leon comes into the pits having gone 2 laps longer than the majority of the field, and 1 lap longer from everybody else. And as he comes down, how far is this going to leap up the order? This is going to be crucial if he wants to pick up a big result here today and potentially keep himself alive in the championship. Well, as we look to the blimp camera, he parks up. Perry's already making his way through turn number 15. So the altitude 3 esports driver will clear Leon. So will Bortolotti, next driver to do so, potentially Martin Stattmann. There he is. And, well, Leon still being serviced. Where is Adonis? Well, here is Adonis making his way on through right now. Leon is still stationary. And, well, in fact, now he's left the pit stop. And Benjamin Massey there's with him. So I think Miguel Leon is going to be close to Mirko Bortolotti. Has he jumped Bortolotti in the pit lane? If so, that's a huge leap for Miguel Leon. It's going to be close between these two as well. You can see Olivia Dean just behind Bortolotti there as they come all the way down towards with the Reto Posta straight. It's going to be practically neck and neck here. Can Bortolotti outrun Leon? He's got the warmer tyres. So what will be this lap? And I think he will. I think Bortolotti should have enough speed. But in fact, no, he won't. The 2-1 coming into turn number 4 and Leon needs to defend this. He needs to hold this. Otherwise, it's all for naught going the extra lap. Bortolotti runs out wide there. It won't be a slowdown penalty. They will continue to fight. Heading up the hill and right now Leon on cold tyres. Bortolotti gets his elbows out. In towards turn number 6 they come. Leon tries to go around the outside. It's not going to work. Now can Olivia Dean get involved here? As we ride aboard with the 280 driver, looking for a potential move here. He needs to find a way through as well. Otherwise, his race may be pinned to the Corvette in front of him, and he won't be able to take down Bortolotti in the late stage of this one. Olivia Dean has been pushing so hard in this race. Well, right now, it's not quite worked out for him. Miguel Leon does lose the fight to Bortolotti, at least for now. And Olivia Dean, meanwhile, now has to try and find his way past the Corvette. That's getting its tyre temperature back as quick as that. And well, behind him is Albert Brish, the other member of the Inosis Esports family, who down in 7th place in Class 8 overall, wants a chance to this one. But in terms of how everything's been shaken up, now that we've had all of our pit stops, well, as you can see in the elite class, your top 5 is Perry, Bortolotti, Stattmann, Bortolotti and Leon, with Olivia Dean losing out here in the pit stops and Perry leaping ahead of Bortolotti. Meanwhile, in the pro class, it is Adonis only 1.2 seconds ahead of Benjamin Massey, who's lost some time in the pit lane due to Adonis' fuel saving. And then it's Flavian Tiefri still ahead of Rene Rissler, with Matthias Pettinger completing that top 5. And, well, the battle of Shamblin and Yang, it's gone the way of Shamblin. I think Handy Yang has actually taken a whole new set of tyres. Yes, he has, as is Quanley too. So therefore, the We Pay 300 Esports team decide the tyre change is worth it. And with 33 minutes to go, well, we'll have to wait and see. That's going to be a bit of a decisive strategic call if so. And meanwhile, in the interclass, well, it's Ludbrook, Tillotson, Fellows, Theobald and Key. But keep in mind, your top 3 have not changed tyres in the interclass, whereas everybody else has. But as we continue to ride on board here, Olivia Dean chasing after Leon. You can see right now these 3 have settled back into rhythm. And with Ryan and Reason, they will continue to fight. Further back, in the interclass, well, Craig Tillotson right now trying to hold on to this second place, looking for that first podium of the season. But the problem he's got is that Andrew Fellows has caught up to him, the 44 driver, now well within a half a second here. And for Tillotson, I wonder whether perhaps the thought process is here. Does he fight this too hard? Now, this is going to sound a bit controversial, what I'm about to say. If he wants his first podium of the season and he's not looking to hunt that second place down to maximise his point, given the gap to Eddie Theobald is 6.3 seconds and it's a further 20 seconds to Bruno Key, well, would he be worth, if Fellows really starts to get aggressive, would he be worth giving up the spot and perhaps trying to stay with Fellows for a time? That's a fault, given the gap to Theobald. But then it comes down to how much time Theobald is taking out of Tillotson and Fellows every lap, which on the previous lap, he was able to take 4 attempts out the pair. This time around, Tillotson, it was none other than a 33.693. Fellows, a 33.550. Theobald, meanwhile, a 31.875. What a good lap there from Eddie Theobald. In fact, that is 1.3 seconds being stripped out there. Well, I think there's your answer straight away, which is that Eddie Theobald right now will close on them very quickly, and Tillotson has to go defensive here. He has to prevent Fellows from getting on through, and he's got to force them to essentially fight. The only problem with that is look who's coming up behind them. That is Mirko Bortolotti, lead lap runner, ahead of Miguel Leon and Olivia Dean. And will the blue flags be waving for the second and third place into battlers? And at this point, well, right now, this is going to be very awkward because if you're Tillotson, what you want to have happen is essentially that Fellows will have to give way. Albeit keep in mind, the blue flag rules we run here at SimRacing International are your GT Racing blue flag rules, whereby essentially the car that's going a lap down does not have to pull it off the racing line in order to be lapped. It's that they have to drive predictably, and it is the responsibility of the lead lap car to make a safe overtake on the lap down car. That's the difference there. So therefore, Bortolotti can flash his headlights to say I'm coming through, but he's the one who's got to initiate the pass. It can't be expected that suddenly Fellows will pull aside, albeit Fellows may choose to do so if he thinks it's going to benefit him, but he'll need to do it very predictably, otherwise he will be in the stewards room being yelled at just as much as it would be if Bortolotti dived up the inside and made contact. So they make the way on to the start for the straight here. 31 minutes left. Well, immediately Fellows there pulls the outside, and I think this is just right now to try and let Jornowski get the best possible run here and go up the inside of it in towards turn 1, and does exactly that. And Fellows will be hoping now that Jornowski can be a forward into Tillerton's side, but if anything, I get the feeling that Fellows doing this has actually cost himself some time, and Miguel Leon now in that dirt, he has lost a lot of momentum here coming through the Curve del Sol. Well, Olivia Dean, if he wants an opportunity, this is it. He's going to be so close at the end of this straight. Here's Dean, and Leon goes defensive immediately. He's going to use Fellows the buffer here. Dean decides to tuck in behind the Gnosis Esports driver, and Fellows sees them both coming and lets them both go. They're great awareness from Andrew Fellows, but now, of course, that means he's got to try and find his way up to Craig Tillotson again and hope that Leon and Dean catch Tillotson at an ill-opportune moment and potentially scupper his lines, because Tillotson has just been bought the best part of 2 seconds worth of space as a result of that. And well, that's all the way that Andrew Fellows has tried to let them go, as Dean, meanwhile, still riding at the rear there of Leon, and there's no separating these two. Now back to your leader, Tim Perry. The gap between himself and Bortolotti is now a second here as Perry runs a little bit wide. That's going to cost him momentum up the hill. In fact, that's going to cost him a 10th quarter exit, and that's going to cost him the best part of 4 tenths. By the time they get to turn 1 at this rate, the gap's already down to 8 tenths a second. And the only thing I can think of is Bortolotti, in fact, holding pace behind the Corvette in front of him. And well, if you're wondering why that is, perhaps he needs to save a little bit of fuel here in order to feel safe towards the very end. I wonder if perhaps right now fuel is still a little bit precarious, but he's underfueled intentionally to make sure he stays with Perry for the purposes of being able to attack him at the end of the race, because in fact the gap did not come down there. It stayed at what was 8 tenths on the run of the straight, whereas we would expect it to close down. So I think Bortolotti doing a bit of fuel saving for now, and the idea is there will be a point probably within the next 3 to 4 laps where suddenly his fuel readings will say, right, you've got enough fuel now to drive at full pace for the rest of the race, and then he will go on the attack, as Perry meanwhile has got to try and keep this together for all the way to the end. With all the fuel saving he's done, if it's not enough, and if he hasn't taken enough fuel in the pits, he's then got to try and find some time to save some fuel. That's not easy when you do have the championship leader hot on your heels behind. From them, we then make our way back to the interclass, and here is Kevin Smith in a fully repaired car after a huge shunt to the barrier between himself and Handa Yang on what was the earlier stage of the race, going down the start finish straight. And well, he has had the fast repair, and he has made 2 stops as a result, 1 for repair work and 1 to put the rest of the fuel in to get him to the end of the race. But right now Smith running 7th place. His first target is Brian Beardsworth, albeit that is a long way away. Beardsworth 15.7 seconds, but understanding Smith might be able to close it down over time, but he's just got to keep pumping in the laps, and at the moment at least he's lapping half a second faster than Beardsworth, which would put him on a course to take that move within the closing 5 minutes or so of the race. So Smith here has definitely got some pace, and if he can catch up to Beardsworth early, he may even be able to get key for 5th place at this rate. So it's not all doom and gloom for him just yet, although he is one of your last runners in this race. In terms of drivers we have lost, we did have the non-start for Chad Henson. We also lost early on the race Jack Wells, as we did James Bostock, Robin Aston, Pinto Sombolavente, and Logan Timberlake for a technical issue, which saw Timberlake have to retire the car. But otherwise, we do still have 33 runners in this race, the majority of them on the lead lap, albeit Justin Noah and Virgilio Garcia both at least 1 lap down. But as we made our way all the way down towards the back of the field, let's make our way slightly back up it to the second place battle in Inter, and this is Tillotson versus Fellows. But behind them is none other now than what is the Gnosis Esports machine of Albert Prish, who's trying to put a lap on both of them. And, well, of course, Fellows is the one who has to be caught first, and he'll be hoping that he can perhaps be passed here in towards turn number 4. Prish is going to look to the inside. Fellows, they're getting very close to touch of the grass. You've got to be careful of that. And Tillotson, meanwhile, we'll be grateful there the fact that he might be able to let the spot on the road go later on that. Perhaps coming out to the middle sector, he'll be able to do so, getting to Jinsao corner, albeit that might be a bit of a costly place. From them, Mark Hutchinson battling here with Jan Lintz. Lintz looking up the inside. Too far back there to go from over. Mark Hutchinson isn't going to be beaten on the brakes in that Ford GT. Not this time, he says. He holds on to 14th there ahead of the Gazex Racing Machine and making the way up the hill. The very colourful liveried Gazex Racing Machine there for sponsor reasons, as Jan Lintz explained to us last time out. And coming over the rise right now, no difference between these two. Meanwhile, well, Jordan Shamblin had plenty of battling earlier on, and he's got even more now because here comes Robin Noel Brown up the inside of him in the BMW M8, and Shamblin there does not go defensive. In fact, he just holds the outside line. Shamblin really does have this knack for 9, exactly where to defend and where not to, because I think there Robin Noel Brown probably thought to himself, right, I'll make this as easy as pie. And then suddenly Shamblin just simply goes, no you won't, I'll just carry the speed around the outside of you. Well, that's the grip that BMW doesn't have versus the Porsche, but Noel Brown's going for it. And keep in mind, both of these drivers, of course, on their original tyres. That's why you have seen several of your pro drivers drop so far back, including Quanley 2 and also Handa Yang, who are behind a non-fresh tyre. Matt Broom there, the HS Racing 1 driver, and right now he's got close company behind him, as they'll be both looking from door to door here, heading up towards turn 6. And Broom trying to hold on to 11th place in the pro class. And Tu and Yang, well, they're trying to make these fresh tyres work. But it does seem as though they're coming up against opposition. That is not going to help their case. Making the way down in towards Pinahero corner. Right now, we look back for the rear of Broom's car. Looking relatively safe at the moment at least. Still 25 minutes left on the clock here. But every lap that Tu and Yang spend behind Broom, that is going to amplify the tyre degradation by the best part of about 1.25 times, an extra 25% or so. And suddenly they'll very quickly find if they can't pass him, the tyres are going to feel much like they did at the end of the opening stint, and that tyre life will have gone away from them, so the change of tyres will all have been for naught, and therefore they won't have gained, they will have lost places as a result of the gamble and strategy. They'll pound their way towards the next lap right now, and Matt Broom here, well, for all the pressure he's under, he's definitely looking comfortable on the straight as at long last Tu starts to catch up here within 2 attempts. We're going to look to the inside here into that braking zone for 1, and into the centre as they come then, and all in goes Quanley 2, and all's their hand. Yang looks up the inside, but there's only space for 1, says Broom, and Yang says no, there's place for 2, but he goes to the grass, and here he comes. What is some of your leaders making the way through? Oh, goodness me, and he gets very close there, as in fact a flash of the headlights from your BMW, that's going to be none other than Martin Stattmann, who wants to get him through, but now suddenly Mikael Avasek gets all over the back there of Handy Yang's car, and well, backs off there, respect to the fact you have a third place runner overall trying to come on through, but I wonder there whether that did catch Matt Broom out by the fact of the way it happened, and also the fact that we did see it go wrong for what was none other the Australian driver and also Yang in the early stages there, but at long last we will see Stattmann make his way up past, and will definitely a bit of an altercation, but here comes Mikael Avasek looking up the inside, and well, with the fact that Yang has gone so deep there on the braking, well, suddenly the Inox Motorsport machine will take that place with relative ease. But meanwhile, the ease of that, there's even more to come as we do look to Jan Lintz versus Mark Hutchinson. Hutchinson all over the back of him like a bad rash here. And well, from then we do look to what is more door-to-door racing between Shambler and Robin Noel Brown, as Brown there locks up the rear right brake in towards turn number 1, tried to go around the outside, and Shambler right now definitely making his car so wide at this point. That's going to be one of the widest Porsches I've seen on the grid today. As he continues to fight, we then make our way back towards the very front of the field. This is Perry versus Bortolotti, and well, the question of could Bortolotti close the gap down? We've got an answer for that. Yes, he can. But now, can Perry hold on, or will Bortolotti find a way past him? Well, there's 23 minutes of the final lap to decipher that one. And right now, Tim Perry absolutely digging in here and hoping that he might be able to hold on for a little bit longer. And well, he's got to hope that the pace will stay with him and that naturally tyre life will go against the driver behind him. As meanwhile, Olivia Dean is into the pit lane again. So Dean has come back in after his first pit stop. The car is making its way on down pit lane. We are keeping an eye on it, but we'll also keep an eye on this battle here as Perry has to go defensive there into turn number 6. Dean is being serviced. He had a very short first stop. I wonder what's going on there. Are we expecting 2 stops here today for drivers? Because if so, well, the way they've cut it to go over half the race distance before pitting, it's a very odd conundrum. But right now, Perry under pressure as Bortolotti looking to go on the attack. We're right on board here with your Italian driver and the Gazix racing MCM Ferrari. It's looking threatening. I think right now, just waiting to bear its fangs at the right moment. As they make their way out of the hairpin in towards turns 11 and 12. Well, right now for Perry, all we can do is keep an eye on the road, make sure he makes the most of the clear track in front of him. No, he's got no dirty air, and he's just got to get those good quarter exits. We're coming up the hill. We can see both of these cars right now, 3 attempts, both getting very similar exits coming out to the south quarter. But the slipstream for Bortolotti will gradually see that gap equalised and then neutralised to the point where he'll gain just that little bit more. Now down to 3 attempts here as they head to the timeline. That Corvette, in fact, very quick on the run over the hill and in towards turn number 1. So Bortolotti not as quick there as we absolutely expect, but under braking, looking on the rear bumper of the 283 Corvette. And we can see it always threatening here. It's in the braking zones where he really makes up the times to the Corvette by comparison. Perry very quick on the straights and gets those good quarter exits, but under braking, it's Bortolotti and his Ferrari that is just able to roll a little bit more comfortably onto the brakes. It's able to gain a 10th under braking, and that's the difference. And that's where Perry's feeling the pressure right now. Every braking zone, that Ferrari gets closer and closer. They're coming out to 4, in towards 5. Perry has to go defensive here. Bortolotti follows him up the hill, albeit on the racing line they both go, but getting closer to the point right now where I think a move's going to come at any moment. Does he look up the inside here in towards 8? He thinks about it. He's keeping Perry guessing. And Tim Perry right now thinking to himself, right, when's he going to come for it? When am I needing to go fully defensive? And well, that's the thing. When you're this close right now, you can keep your rival guessing all the way until the very moment when you do decide to make the play. These two so close, and well, at any moment, once more stake, or alternatively one big break, and it could all change. But as they get ready to do battle onto the next lap, meanwhile, coming back to Shamlin versus Noel Brown. This is becoming a familiar story with these two. The gap 2 tenths again. And Noel Brown looking up the inside into 1. But the thing is, he won't be able to beat the Porsche on the brakes, then the BMW, as much as he tries. Shamlin just seems to have that absolutely settled in. They continue to fight over 8th place of the class, and they're giving Cedric Boycier the absolute space to be able to walk away. You see Boycier there make his way out of turn number 4 in the distant camera view. But of course, he's cleared it, and in front of them is also the machinery of Kevin Smith, who's going to go a lap down at the rate of knots they're travelling at. Meanwhile, coming back to your leader in the Pro class, here's Angel Ordonez for Enosis Esports with the pressure of Benjamin Massey behind. So Massey is with him right now, and in fact takes a huge amount of grass with him there at turn number 1. It was a bit unconventional there, and I don't think that was to take the grass as a souvenir. I think he may have made a mistake turning in too soon, but Massey right now is believing that he could potentially be the first driver to really take the fight to Angel Ordonez over the distance. Whenever Ordonez has got it right in a round and he's taken a win, he has proven to typically be untouchable. So this is very intriguing today, with our untouchable elite leader of Bortolotti being put under pressure by Tim Perry, and Perry is still leading at the moment, and Ordonez meanwhile is actually finding that Benjamin Massey has been able to stay with him over the distance, and in fact been able to reel him back in. Well, unconventional, of course, the problem that Ordonez has had is he's not had the opportunity to save as much fuel as Massey, but right now Massey has been no slouch. He has really pushed for this, and that's why he's all glued to the back of his rival, even if he had to take more fuel in the pits to make sure he could go forward attack at the end of the race. Definitely a difference in story here, bucking the trends that we've seen over the last few rounds. But meanwhile, as they get ready to come towards the end of their lap, here we go back to your leaders, overall and elite. And Perry right now, the gap to Bortolotti, only a 10th here as they make the way past pit lane entry. And well, Bortolotti right now looking one way to the other. Perry stays glued to the inside wall here. He says, you're not over the inside line no matter what. And then Bortolotti comes out there, Perry on the inside. But Bortolotti goes to go around the outside. It's a lock up on the front right brake. But Bortolotti's still there on the inside. 2 wide down for this as they go, and in the lead does change. Bortolotti doesn't get it done the cleanest possible way, but he does take the lead of the race now ahead of Perry. Now can Perry stay with him? Can he come back later on here? He's got to believe he can, but Bortolotti, at least for now, has taken the lead of this race. And Perry, well, he defended hard to the inside wall, but it wasn't enough. Meanwhile, Ordonez versus Massey, they're heading now down the Retoposta straight, and you can see Ordonez going defensive immediately here. He feels threatened, and well, rightly so, as Massey's going to look all the way around the outside. Ordonez onto the brakes here. Will Massey switch it back? He tries to, but Ordonez says, no, I've seen that one before. I'm just going to simply ride the line and put it on the apex. So right now, these two, as we look back for the rear of your lead pro driver, it could all come down to the final few laps. We've still got 18 minutes to go in this one, and the lead battle for the Pro class could not be closer. And with Flavien Tiefri 13 seconds behind, well, his involvement in this one is definitely not happening this time unless these two take all the time in the world away from each other. But I suspect right now that might be what will be a very impossible probability as they get ready for another hairpin, but this time Massey too far back to get involved. But you can see they're chomping, wanting to try and just take a little bit more time out of Ordonez, but the Spaniards right now definitely holding on here. And well, to be fair, we haven't seen him under this pressure so far this season, but now under this pressure, he's doing a very good job of managing it. From him, well, we need to look back a little bit further because we have had Craig Tillotson have some pressure coming into him. That is Eddie Theobald with him, and where on earth is Andrew Fellows in all this? Well, Theobald's up the inside, Tillotson tries to turn in into the hairpin, and Theobald catches him out there into the hairpin, and suddenly was looking to be a maiden podium this season for Craig Tillotson's now slipped to a 4th place. It's still 20 seconds to Bruno Key, so a top 5 is still highly possible, and a 4th place would be his best result of the season, but this is not what Verona Academy have expected whatsoever, and there has been a change in narrative with regards to what's been Andrew Fellows find his way on past, and then suddenly, well, it's all just come the way of none other than Theobald with the fresher tyres. But as they make the way down the start for the straight, Tillotson in the tow here at least for now. Can he find a way back before that braking zone? Because if so, he might be able to force this battle to go at least another lap. The answer is no. Tillotson too far behind. As they make the way down through turns 1 and 2, well, let's get a replay of how Craig Tillotson's lost those 2 places, starting with the pass by Andrew Fellows. So this was all the way back on lap number 42. So it was the best part of 6 laps to go. Fellows on the inside here coming out the Curva del Sol. Went on the inside for the braking zone. And then Tillotson couldn't really fight it too hard. And I think just trying to manage his tyres, to be fair to him. Not a critique. I think he is starting to hit the proverbial cliff of tyre life. But then we had this only months later for Theobald on Tillotson. And this was how Theobald found his way into 3rd place. So it began on the exit of turn 4 into 5 here, and Tillotson went defensive, so it was not sunny into turn 10. Theobald tried to go all the way around. Tillotson was still there going defensive, and Theobald actually took some marbles with him, and that enabled Tillotson have the confidence here to be back on the inside for 8, but went deep, made some door-to-door contact there. That's unfortunate, but in the end, both drivers survived it quite comfortably, and at that point, well, I think the writing was on the wall that Theobald was going to come back and in towards the turn 10 hairpin, but went for the switch back there into the braking zone very late in the day to do so, and Tillotson tried to cover it off, but Theobald nailed it there, and the British driver squeezing ahead of his fellow countryman and made his way into third place. Great battle between the two of them, and well, good recovery there from Theobald to third, and for Tillotson still, he's got to keep hoping because it's still a possibility he can take a top 5 here. All he's got to do in that Ferrari right now is not make mistakes, and he definitely is on course to his best result of the season, even if the first podium of the season is going to be 1 place away. But from them, after all the battling we've seen in the interclass, well, we do have Albert Prisch and Flavio Thierry together. They're not in the same class, but they're still enjoying a battle for 8th place. And Prisch ahead of the Frenchman right now. But understanding the Spaniard has not dropped him at any point in this race. They have been staying with each other. They kept each other very honest here. And I can imagine if they were both in the same class, they might be enjoying this battle. But right now, this battle has actually cost them time to drive in front as it has the drivers behind. So this is not the most opportune battle. But further back, René Rosler finds himself in a similar situation. Here's Gazek's racing teammate there of Christian Ablasser, albeit the fact they're two teammates, they'll try to work this out, but one of them, Ablasser, is an elite driver, Rosler is a pro driver, so therefore a change of overall position is not worth anything. But meanwhile, into the opening corner we go, and that's Tim Perry coming from quite far back there. Door wide open, Bortolotti, and well, in the end, a little bit of a door rub between the two of them, and well, he's going to hold on as the Ferrari driver, but Perry, they're really going for it, and I think deciding, you know what, if I can get within 2 to 3 attempts into that opening zone, why don't I go for it every so often? Keep it guessing right now, and well, that could have worked out very differently, to be fair, if Bortolotti had been caught by surprise by it. But the 283 in the end, not quite able to make the magic happen. But you can definitely see that Perry is not being dropped here. He is staying with him. And that confidence in Perry might right now really be building here, that he could be springing a surprise late on. Again, the longer we go into this race, the more we expect the Corvette to have the tyre life advantage. But Bortolotti has done a great job in managing the tyres on that Ferrari. But the natural theme is, the longer the race is, the Corvette will gradually gain the upper hand, as will the Porsche 911 RSRs. They are the second best on tyre management. As we do see Thierry still chasing up Prisch here, rolling on through into the middle sector. But time is of the essence here if he wants to make that place. And if he does so, what does he then gain after it? Well, not really much, because the target he needs to go after is Benjamin Massey. But Massey is all the way up the road by the best part of 13 seconds or so. But we'll see what's to be there as we do say hello to Harvey Wills there, who's cheering on Tim Perry, and we'll do come back to the man in second as he continues that pursuit of his first win of the season in the 283. But for right now, he's still got that one bump in the road to try and overcome, and that is Bortolotti. And keep in mind, Perry has only had 1 podium this season, a 2nd place in round number 2. Other than that, he has been top 5s at best. So right now, despite the fact he is 4th in the championship, you would argue that he would deserve even more, but it just has not come to him. And well, this could be a matching of his best result, although you would say it is his best result because it is an endurance race round where he's picked up the 2nd place. It's worth more points compared to the feature race round where he picked up that 2nd place. But right now for Perry, he wants the top spot. He does not want to be the bridesmaid once again. He wants to be the bride this time round. But of course, he has come up against a very stubborn bride on where's the rostrum, and that is Bortolotti there, who right now is refusing to give it each, let alone a mile, but knowing that these two are absolutely locked in all the way to the very end of it. But looking further back, we come to Mikel Abasek. He's chasing after Kwong Li 2 for 11th place in the pro class, and these two of course haven't had very different races. Abasek with a moderate pit stop whereby he changed fuel and also 2 tyres. Meanwhile, Kwong Li 2 changed all 4 tyres and put the fuel in the car, and that's why these two are together when they would normally be apart from each other. Meanwhile, in a twist, Eddie Theobald is back into the pit lane, so he's coming in. Virgilio Garcia's in as well, so I think Theobald pitted too early, and it's a quick splash and dash. So suddenly, it is looking to be a podium here for Craig Tillotson from Radar Academy, and Andrew Fellows will now be comfortably clear, but this has mostly changed up the complexion of this racing, and suddenly in the interclass, if Tillotson just holds on, Bruno Key is closing at 0.6 of a second a lap, but Tillotson, all he needs to do now between this and the end of the race is not make any mistakes to maintain his pace, and he will be on that podium if he can hold on. Here is Key by comparison. He's bringing Brian Beardsworth with him. These drivers have both got fresh tyres on the car, but that's a shock to the system there. We did not expect Theobald to be making a second stop, but in the end just pitting too early and not putting the fuel in and realising that there's still 11 minutes or so of the race to go. Meanwhile, Prish versus Tiefri, they now start to go side by side here. We've been waiting for this as they come in towards turn number 1. Prish on the right of your picture in 8th, trying to hold on to the spot. And Tiefri looking one way, then the other. And well, Tiefri's now going to go for the switchback here to go around the outside. In the end, they both give each other space. Tiefri does take to the grass a little bit as in the end, Prish gives him all the space and time of day. And I think in the end, Prish decides to give up the position there, respecting the fact that he did chop down a little bit hard into the apex of 2. And now the fight reignites here, but Tiefri will take track position. Respectful racing between the two of them. And you could tell as soon as we saw Tiefri go onto the grass there, which I think was because of the fact that we did see Prish come down too hard from the apex of 1 into 2. Then it was out Prish who decided, right, I'm going to give him all the space coming out of turn number 3. So I have crowded him off the road effectively. And Tiefri will be grateful for that. And I'm sure the ID for our competition team, when they look back at that after race, they will realise they haven't already that actually the Gnosis Esports driver, they're trying to be as fair as humanly possible in order to enable great racing. And well, what fair racing between the two, no doubt about it. We can't look at that for too long because now we've got 2 forward GTEs fight each other. This is Adrian Vlok attacking at Mark Hutchinson. And remember, much earlier in the race, it was Vlok who was able to get the upper hand on Hutchinson, albeit it took him the best part of 20 minutes to find a way past. And well, right now it does seem as though if we gave him a Rubik's Cube and he sorted it out once, suddenly somebody's taken it back off of him and said, right, go do it again. And Mark Hutchinson is a very difficult puzzle to solve, to be fair, albeit that's a compliment to him because the altitude for him Esports driver, he may not be the quickest out there, but goodness me, has he been making that forward wide as possible. But now they have a third player who's joined the party because into player 3, it's Olivia Dean in 10th place in the elite class. And he wants to place off of both of them in his Ferrari. As Vlok, they're getting so close coming out just south corner to the point of practically pushing Hutchinson through the corner. And Vlok right now, I think he'll be saying to himself, why can't this man just get a move on in front of me? Or why can't I clear him? Well, the problem is, for all the speed that Vlok has got in the corners, it's on the straight when suddenly that Ford GT in front of him gains, but not this time because Vlok's got the mother of all runs here as he looks up the inside in towards turn number 1. And well, surely this has got to be done here. He'll clear him before the apex. And he does so, and Adrian Vlok now moves into 8th place in the elite class. But there's one last counter-attack that Hutchinson might be able to use, and that is coming through the Curve del Sol. Although I think right now Hutchinson may not have any life left in the car as Olivia Dean has made that second stop for a splash and dash of fuel. Well, he's going to try and go for the move here, and Dean right now will feel very confident he can make this move happen. Goes the inside here, up the inside in towards turn 4. And in the end, Hutchinson does not offer a battle with this one. He lets it go. I think Hutchinson's struggling with tyre life here and may even be running slightly low on fuel. And that might be why we're seeing the altitude 3 of Esports drive. As much as he wants to fight, I don't think he can fight at the moment unless he risks another pit stop or a mistake being made. So Hutchinson going backwards here rather than forwards. But I don't think it's by choice. Meanwhile, we do come back to your leaders, and well, we do see their three-wheeler racing, saying this reminds me of Baranoevo versus Tim Perry in the America's GT Challenge Championship all the way back in 2025, and indeed you'd be absolutely right here, albeit slightly different cars, but the point's definitely standing in the fact that Bortolotti and Perry are very close together, as were Baranoevo and Perry back then. And well, right now, Bortolotti goes a bit wide, they're coming out to turn number 4. But one of the things that has been remarked on in regards to Italian drive is the limited number of instants he has, or the number of instant points he picks up over a race, particularly at, say, Le Mans, for example. I think he only picked up 1 point over the entire 60-minute race, which at Le Mans, for the uninitiated, the track limits there are incredibly strict, and you have to abuse them to get the best laps out. Bortolotti right now, definitely when he goes off track, it is either by limited design, alternatively because he's been forced off the road. And right now, that's the first off track we've seen on camera from him over the course of what has been 8 rounds of racing. Perry's still there, and well, right now, what can Tim Perry do at this point other than just stay within distance? Half a second seems to be the gap that's holding, but of course, it's going to keep weaving back and forth. In the battle of Adonis versus Massey, well, they're coming up behind a little bit more traffic here, as that is going to be the Porsche of none other than Quantity 2 in front of them, running all the way back in 10th place in Pro and 21st overall. Albeit Adonis will be grateful that he's caught up to the WP300 Esports car coming out of Jinsao corner, because that will give him a tow, and that's going to help him move forward a little bit as they power their way onto the straight. But of course, he wants to now clear him before they get to the turn 1 braking zone if he can. Albeit noting the Corvette only now starting to gain in top gear. It's taking a very long time to do so here, and well, I wonder if Adonis is actually going to clear him into this braking zone. I don't think he will. I think he's going to be stuck there. He is. They come onto the brakes, and well, in the end, 2's going to go a bit deep. This is not going to help Adonis whatsoever. And well, whilst all this is happening, we'll come back to what's happening to the leaders shortly, because they have almost changed places at the front of the road. But meanwhile, Adonis are under major pressure, and will Benjamin Massey now going too wide. 2 is still there, pulls the inside line, tries to get out of the way for the fight. It's going to be 3 wide here as they head towards turn number 4. And in the end, up the inside goes Benjamin Massey. Massey takes the lead in the pro class here. I don't believe it. Now, Angel Adonis has got to come back as Adonis goes out wide. And well, Quality 2, they're still trying to hold his line. Meanwhile, Adonis comes back on to the inside here. At turn number 6 he comes. Now Adonis, with only 6 minutes to go. Surely we're not going to see history being made here today. And Angel Adonis from a leading position won't be dropping it himself. He will be dropping it to a rival, albeit you could say the intervention there of Quality 2 may have assisted in the endeavour. But Ben Jamassi might be getting the upper hand here. Are we seeing championship momentum coming back to the leader? Well, we've not got long to go, but don't write it off yet, because Adonis, well, what can he now do to bounce back? Has he got anything left in the tank? I think the answer might be yes. Meanwhile, whilst that was happening, we take a look back at the Perry Bortolotti battle. This was coming down towards turn number 4, and Perry did look for a potential move here from what we're hearing, and we'll get into that braking zone. Perry looked up the inside, and Bortolotti in on the outside. They went door to door, and Bortolotti ran all the way out there and did rejoin, but that's an off track that's been allowed and used up, and we'll understand we can't keep doing it forever. But as they make the way down the start for this straight, we come back to your live pictures, but Perry tried to go for that move, didn't quite work out that time. But understanding right now, these drivers, they're getting very fidgety right towards the end of this race, and well, it's not over yet. These final 5 minutes, they could be the most precarious 5 minutes that we have seen today, let alone all season. That's me on Flavin Tiefri going defensive here versus Albert Prish, who tries to go around the outside of him. That's not going to work. So right now, Prish is going to get a bit more inventive. Meanwhile, Olivia Dean has now caught up to the back of Adrian Vlock for 8th place in the elite class. So Vlock right now having cleared. Mark Hutchinson will probably be thinking to himself, oh great, now I've got a Ferrari to deal with. How am I going to beat that? And well, his guess is as good as ours. Olivia Dean here gets very close before the braking zone for 1, but it's not going to be enough to give him the confidence to look up the inside and try and get the job done. Meanwhile, in the interclass, to give you an update there, John Ludbrook is comfortably leading with Andrew Fellows and Craig Tillotson all looking safe in the podium spots. Bruno Key is closing up to Tillotson a second a lap. Begin the time remaining right now. The prediction is that Key will not be able to get to him close enough. Brian Beardsworth, meanwhile, is closing on at Bruno Key, so there might be a fight for fourth right at the end of the race in their class. We are keeping an eye on it with one distant view. But looking back to Massey versus Adonis. And well, of course, it didn't work out for Adonis, but remember what we said only moments ago. Angel Adonis surely is not going to let this go, and the answer is he definitely does not. As now we ride back on board here with your 106 driver, making his way on towards what will be 3 more laps of racing as defined by the overall leaders, and Adonis now only has 3 more opportunities to try and get this done. Looking to the inside immediately here, he's far back, but he's saying to Massey, I'm coming for you, and Massey responds by going deep. It gets into Massey's head, and now as Adonis comes on down, he's going to look around the outside. Can he get this done immediately? He can, but now will Benjamin Massey be able to get himself back together immediately? As you can see behind there, that's going to be one of his teammates, and well, that's a lap down teammate of none other than Mikael Abasek, who will never unlap himself off of the back of Massey there. To do so would be suicide for the team, and therefore Marinko Jornovski right now will want Abasek out the way. That's not to help Adonis out, but naturally he will just want him out the way to be able to move forward to get away from Miguel Leon. But Abasek here, I think, is going to prove a little bit obstinate here. He wants to give Massey every opportunity to go back at Adonis, at least get himself back together before he does yield to the blue flags, and that's why I understand right now Jornovski's going to be looking at something thinking, right, I might need to force my way through. But meanwhile, coming back to the leaders overall, well, we have had the gap open up to 1.2 seconds, but it has been aided by traffic there. Brandon White, they've had to clear, and it's fallen more favourably to Bortolotti than it has to Perry. But is that it, ladies and gentlemen? Is it a 1.1 second gap now? Tim Perry is still pushing hard. He is setting purple sectors in sector 1 compared to everybody else. So Perry is not slow here, no doubt about it. But now only 2 laps remaining. Can he close down that Ferrari? 9 tenths. He is close to the tow here. Perry has not given up yet. They've got more traffic in front of them. They've got at least 2 cars to make their way through on this lap, if not the final lap. Perry is not done. This could still come down to the final lap, and right now, where Bortolotti takes it, it will be a 6th win of the season. If Perry takes it, it will be a 1st win of the season. Meanwhile, here, Adonis versus Massey. Adonis cleared Massey down through the S's on the previous lap, absolutely ravaged him through here, and right now Massey is trying to do the same, coming back at him all the way through the Curva del Sol. And well, Adonis goes defensive immediately towards the pit wall there. He makes it very clear he's holding that inside line, and Massey says, good for you, I'll go around the outside then. And into the braking zone, Massey's going to get a nose ahead, onto the anchors they go, small touch between the 2 of them, and then Massey is just slightly moved wide, and here goes Jornovski. Jornovski tucks up the inside, And he's going to get right between the two pro drivers right now. And for Mirko Bortolotti at this point, well, he's going to be afforded both sides, but will he now be affording Adonis this side? Does he decide to clear him as well? And well, coming into turn number 8, the answer is no. He makes a small mistake there out of 7. That's going to cost him some momentum. It's not going to help out, but understanding Massey at this point, well, I don't think he'll be too upset about the second place, knowing he's finished right behind Adonis, but he would like one more chance of this, but we'll have to see where he's going to be given that opportunity. Behind, there's Mikael Abasek battling with Bonley 2. He has lost that position to 2 over the last couple of laps in the rear of the picture. We haven't quite been able to talk about that, but meanwhile, one more lap to be done. Bortolotti versus Perry overall, and the gap 1 second as the white flag waves here, and we can see Perry up the inside there, Theobald, and will Bortolotti finding a car there. That's Jordan Shamblin coming down through the S's. It's not an ideal place to catch another car, but I don't think Perry's got enough anymore in the tank. I think Perry at this point has run out of momentum as it's a black flag for Bortolotti, who's picked up a drive-through penalty due to track limits going on to the final lap. He's gone straight into the pit lane. He is serving it, but that will take him out of the Adonis Massey equation, and that's going to promote Miguel Leon up into fourth place in the class. It may even give Albert Frisch another place back. We'll have to see, ladies and gentlemen, because we have not got long to go, and everywhere we look now, things are tightening up. Meanwhile, Olivia Dean still fighting with Adrian Vlock as they get ready to go on to their final tour of the circuit. The Cube Racing team driver here trying to pick his way past for 8th place in the elite class, but meanwhile back to Adonis and Massey. And the pro leaders here, and Massey really diving on the brakes there in towards turn number 4, but it's not enough this time. But understandably, he's going to try and do everything he's got left in the car in order to make this happen. Corvette and Corvette, this is going to come down to the drivers and the setups they've got on the car and how much energy they've both got left. And Massey right now definitely seems to have it in spades, but Adonis meanwhile just trying to keep cool under pressure here, the 106 driver, and well, he's trying to raise himself to the bar of what is Massey, and he's doing so well so far, but it is going to be another 5 corners to go. But as they make the way on through, meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your leader, and for Mirko Bortolotti, well, the GazX Racing MCM driver for the first time this season has been put under intense pressure by Tim Perry, but as the checker flag awaits him, it will be a 6th win of the season for the Italian driver. He is undefeated here today in Brazil. Head of Tim Perry takes second place there for Altitude Flip Esports. Martin Stattmann will come on home in 3rd for GazX Racing MCM, but who will be your pro winner? It's going to be Angel Adonis, surely, or is Massey going to outdrag him to line? No, it's not going to be enough, and Adonis will take a 4th win of the season in the pro class, but Massey kept him honest all the way to the end. Miguel Leon will come home in 6th, just ahead on Mirko Bortolotti, 6 seconds behind, who you can see here, make his way through there, and Bortolotti with that drive-through penalty just losing out at the death of the race, and then we will see Flavian Tiefri coming home in none other than what we 3rd of the pro class. But John Ludbrook, he finished the race on camera as well there, your Inter winner. He returns to winning ways, his 3rd win of the season for GPX SimSport Xenon, and Andrew Fellows will be coming on home shortly for what will surely be a 2nd place here. This is going to be a revival form for Andrew Fellows today, who's nailed it on strategy and who the aim of the game was just manage the tyres, take the fuel, and don't do anything crazy. He will be run up. It is a 1-2 for GPX SimSport Zen on the Interclass, and for Craig Tillerson, Verano Academy are going to be absolutely ecstatic about this, because whilst it went wrong for Kevin Smith, Tillerson survives to take 3rd place in the Interclass, his 1st podium of the season for Verano Academy in a Ferrari that definitely right now would love a new set of tyres. But I think Tillerson right now is going to be more than happy to let the car relax after this one, because he's earned it the hard way. Bruno Key takes home 4th place here, missing out on the podium for the first time in a while in the Interclass, ahead of Kevin Smith. What a recovery drive from the Verano Academy driver to finish 5th in the end, despite him to make 2 trips to pit lane, one after that huge shunt on the start-finish line straight. But that will be the conclusion of your race, ladies and gentlemen, and what a race it has been. And well, I can tell you one thing, as Bortolotti goes to pick the rubber up there to add some weight to the car for the post-race stewarding checks. Well, right now, the Ferrari driver would owe today. He has survived an absolutely terrific challenge from this man, Tim Perry. And whilst Perry may not have been able to take the win today, he came so close. On strategy, he took the lead. He lost out in the late stages, but to be fair to him, he threw everything at it. And for Angel Adonis and Benjamin Massey, well, a similar picture. Massey got ahead for a brief moment, but he couldn't quite find a way to hold on to it, and Adonis in the end just had the extra 5%. That was the difference of the two. But we have seen some huge names in our Elite and Pro Championships go toe-to-toe today, and it sets us up so well for our final 2 rounds of the season. And in the Interclass, well, John Lerberg enjoying a trip to the grass there, and with his teammate Andrew Fellows just in front of him. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. And we'll both drivers there knowing that GPX SimSport Zen have returned to 1-2 after a long time away from it. And here at Interlagos today, they've got their championships well and truly back underway. And with this, and with the difficulties with Intersombo Levente, Ludbrook may just now have retaken the Inter-Championship lead going into the final 2 rounds. As all our drivers cooling down, well, of course, that leaves us to bring you the provisional results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after 90 minutes of racing at the Autodromo José Carlos Pache in round 8 of 10 of the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 1 brought to you on iRacing, Mirko Bortolotti held on overall in elite to take victory by 1.3 seconds for Gazix Racing MCM, head of Altitude 3M Esports' Tim Perry. His teammate, Bortolotti's teammate of Martin Stattmann, in the end was a third party to that battle in the first stint and could never quite get close enough to it to get involved. He had to settle for third, but to be fair to the Austrian driver, that third place will definitely be very well received, and it keeps him in second place in the championship. Angel Ordonez took the win in the Pro Class, their 4th overall, which is where he started today, but the Enosis Esports driver in the end had the company of Benjamin Massey to contend with, and Massey here today proving that if Ordonez wants the championship, he's not going down easily, and the Inox Motorsport driver finishing 5th just behind him. It was then a further 6 seconds to Miguel Leon, who in 6th for Enosis Esports was able to sneak his way back into 4th in the elite class, ahead of a late drive-through for Mirko Bortolotti. And the Gazix Racing JRM driver losing out, they're taking 7th, head of Flavien Thierry, who rounded off the pro podium, and the ID5 competition driver from France earning his right to be back on the podium there and making that magic happen, even though he spent most of the race fighting with the man who finished behind him, Albert Frisch. Behind the Enosis Esports driver, it was Rene Rosler who rounded off the top 10 for Gazix Racing JRM, ahead of the sister team driver of Christian Ablasser, and then we did see Matthias Pettinger rounding off your top 5 in the pro class there with a solid performance for Inox Motorsport. Jan Lintz wasn't too far behind, only a second at the close, but ahead of Adrian Flott there by the best part of 8 seconds, with Flott getting the upper hand for HS Racing 1 ahead of Olivier Dean, and then behind the Frenchman for the Cube Racing team, it was Mark Hutchinson who lost out on pace at the end with the tyres in his Ford GTE not holding up to the test. CJ Boyce took 17th place ahead of John Shamblin, who definitely provided us with plenty of entertainment today for Dynasty Motorsports, a lap down, and there was also a lap down to Brandon White and Kwong Lee too. But you had to go all the way down to 22nd place to find your Inter winner, because just behind Mikhail Abasek was John Ludbrook there, taking his 3rd Inter win of the season with GPEX SimSport Zenon, and untouchable today after it all went wrong for Kevin Smith. Handy Yang, Robin Noel Brown and Matt Broom separated him from the rest of the Inter class, and next up in the Inter class in 26th it was Andrew Fellows for GPEX SimSport Zenon, completing a 1-2 for the team, ahead of Craig Tillotson, who finally takes that maiden podium of the season for Rano Academy. Bruno Key finishing 4th there in the class, 28th overall for We Pay 300 Esports, ahead of Verano Academy's Kevin Smith on that incredible recovery drive, and Brian Bearsworth completing the top 30 there, falling just short of an Inter top 5. Outside the top 30, it was then Eddie Theobald, 2 laps down, like Bearsworth, and we did see 4 laps down, but finishing Virgilio Garcia, and then we did sadly have the retirements of Justin Noel, Logan Timberlake, Pinto Somolavente, James Bostock, Robin Aston, Jack Wells, and a non-start for Chad Henson after 60 incredible laps of racing. But coming to the elite class, and indeed all our classes now, because this is where the points are made and were lost, and as we do see, Mirko Bortolotti there being paid in full, the maximum 75 points today for Gazix Racing MCM, but being put to the test by Tim Perry, who finished just behind him. Then Martin Stattmann rounded off the podium, a double podium for the Gazix Racing team, albeit split there by the Altitude 3M Esports driver, and then just off the podium, Miguel Leon ahead of Marinko Jornovsky. That was your top 5, and then it was Albert Frisch in 6th for Enosis Esports, ahead of Christian Ablasser, with Adrian Block, Olivia Dean, and Mark Hutchinson completing the top 10, and then it was non-finishes for the rest of the field of Justin Noel, Jack Wells, and Chad Henson. Then to the pro class, and the gaps here very tight at the top, only a quarter of a second over 90 minutes, separating Angel Ordonez and Benjamin Massey, the Enosis Esports and Inox Motorsport drivers. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of stories to exchange after this one, with Flavien Thierry a further 15 seconds behind there. But to be fair to the ID5 competition driver, really put together a brilliant race here today. And in the end, all that fighting with his elite rivals actually benefited him, because it meant he was on at their pace and was able to make sure nobody else could catch up. An unfortunate error early on in the race for Rene Rosler really relegated him out of the hunt. It was on strategy that he had to do a second pit stop for a splash and dash of fuel, and the Gazix Racing JRM driver losing out ahead of Matthias Pettinger, who in the end took 5th place for Inox Motorsport and made sure the team have picked up a nice haul of points. Jan Lintz took 6th place there, just behind, but the comfortable best part of what was none other than, I believe, 27 seconds ahead of CJ Boyce. In fact, make that 30 seconds when I can do the maths correctly, and the Cube Racing team driver, your last lead lap finisher in pro. It was a letdown for John Shamblin. He definitely kept us entertained ahead of Brandon White, with Kwong Lee 2 in the end taking the gamble to switch tyres in the pits and it didn't work out for WePay 300 Esports' driver as it didn't for his teammate. But between himself and Handa Yang was Mikhail Abasek in 11th place there for Inox Motorsports, and behind Yang in 13th place it was Robin Noel Brown, head of Matt Broom, with all of our pro starters seeing the finish line. And then coming to the interclass, last but by no means least, and as we got to see here, it was victory for John Ludbrook by almost 40 seconds for GPX SimSport Xenon, head of his teammate of Andrew Fellows, a 1-2 for the team, and a further, 7 seconds behind, not quite able to make it second, losing out on tyre life in the end, but definitely a third place, Craig Tillotson there for Verano Academy. Bruno Key was a third 10 seconds behind. Whilst he changed all 4 tyres, he didn't have enough time in the race to make them work to the best possible effectiveness, and the Chinese driver there had to settle for 4th just ahead of Kevin Smith, who was 2 seconds behind at the close. Goodness me, was he hustling. And then we did see a lap down there for Brian Beardsworth and Eddie Theobald, and Theobald's early batting ended up being undone by the fact he had to make those 2 trips to the pits. It was 3 laps down to Virgilio Garcia, and then it was retirements through Logan Timberlake, and also Pinto Sombolavente and James Bostock, as it was for Robin Aston. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that gives you your full rundown of the race results subject to any Stewards inquiries. But this broadcast isn't quite over yet, because whilst our circuit has definitely gone silent and everyone's packing up their bags, well, I wonder if we'll be able to catch some of our drivers before they fully packed up their bags and got their flight in order to be able to hear from them about the racing today. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time to find out who we're going to get a chance to speak to. Don't go anywhere. You won't miss your post-round interviews. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Stattmann gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there at 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the 2 of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the 2 Fords, for the Ford and the Corvette, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Stattmann side by side with him, but look behind Tim Perry under pressure and Miguel Leon immediately as the Inosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner of Stattmann, and Stattmann right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back, but here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Stattmann falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here, which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time, as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillison's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. start, and Brian Beards on the end. He gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes to the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And well, what better way to kick off than to speak to a man who's found himself right at the forefront of all the batting today. It is none other than Benjamin Massey, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Ben. And well, you came so close to the pro win today. 10th of a second at the line. Second place still. It's not all bad. How was it for you out there?
Yeah, I mean, the quality was really good. I think I tried the grid and go setup for this week, and it worked quite nicely with the way I drive, so managed to get, I think it was like 6th in quali, and I didn't manage to get a draft, so it was a pretty good pace. Like 3/10 off Bortolotti, which I'm really happy with, and like 1/10 off the next guys in front of me. So that helped. But then the start, I lost a bit of ground, but I managed to fuel save quite a few litres and make some of it back. So yeah, good one.
Oh, fair play. A good race there, like you say, really be able to make that time back as the race went on. And of course, talking a little bit more about the qualifying, that 6th place overall, second in class. I mean, when we saw the pole position that by Bortolotti, it was 2/10 faster than anybody else. But then second, through to yourself in 6th, separated by no more than a 10th. But of course, frustratingly, 3 drivers in the elite class have threaded themselves between yourself and Angel Ordonez. I bet you were sat there thinking to yourself, well, it's great the qualifying that, but what do I have to do to get on the same row as this guy?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, mainly, obviously, Angel Ordonez, so I'm expecting to be quicker than the next 3, well, this track and the next 2 tracks. And same with Rene as well, but Rene's closer to me in points, so I was mainly happy that I was in front of him. And then sort of like, as I was making some ground, I started to think more about trying to beat Angel as well. But mainly I was happy just to, because it was like a back and forth in the times we put in the quali. I think like I beat his first time and then he beat me and then I managed to beat him again. Rene this is. So yeah, got a good place to start and almost got Angel at the end too and had a nice battle with him.
Oh, 100%. And in terms of going into the race itself, we did see in early stages you fall back a little bit, but I suspect that was all part of the strategy to save some fuel and some tyre life. It looked so the one stop and no tyre change was the right way to go. I mean, how hard was it out there sticking to that strategy?
Yeah, I mean, probably in the last like 6 to 8 laps, the tyres were starting to die a bit more. Probably because of the temps as well as just like the usage of them. But yeah, I couldn't quite. I made a couple of mistakes that like inevitably lost me the win. Because I managed to pass Angel and then I went deep one time where there was no rubber on the track and yeah, but it was worth doing a one stop. Definitely wouldn't have been worth taking the tyres because I wouldn't have made that much time back. So yeah, it was the right strategy call, I think.
Oh, 100% the right strategy call. And we got to see an epic battle between the two of you. And of course, in theory, what we've seen previously, Angel Ordonez has been relatively untouchable in terms of pace, but you found a way in. I mean, were you a bit surprised that you were with him, or was this sort of, you know what, we are here, we've been trying this for the last, what has been 7 rounds, it hasn't happened, and now we're taking on, arguably, the fastest man in pro?
Yeah, I was, of course, doing some officials this week to practice, and I'd never really driven the track before this week, but I think the flow of the track really works with how I drive. And just like constantly, it's just easier to sort of hit the apex and stuff on this one, I don't know why. So, well, I managed to gain some iRacing from it too, so I think I'm up a few hundred as well and at a new peak, so I knew that I had decent pace here. But yeah, good position overall, I think.
Oh, 100%. And with regards to the mistake you made when you had taken the position and then you lost it to him, I mean, what happened? Was that perhaps just being a bit too enthusiastic into the braking zone for turn 1? Just explain if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, the main mistake was a bit later on in the track, like just with the weavy bit. I don't know what turn it is, but yeah, it's just going a little bit deep, and then because the tires are going and the track doesn't have any rubber on it in that section, I just lost like 4 tenths or something just in the one corner. But other than that, it was basically like a faultless race, really, I'd say.
Oh, indeed it was. I mean, in the end, the two of you separated by a quarter of a second. We couldn't have asked for a closer conclusion. And the thing is, of course, as championship leader, a second place in Pro isn't a bad thing because it means you've extended your lead. Adonis has still got to play catch-up. And if you finish second behind him for the remainder of the season, the theory is you're still going to be the champion. I mean, surely with 2 rounds to go now, this has got to give you the confidence to think, you know what, this championship is almost in my grasp.
Yeah, I mean, before this round, I'd calculated that I'd need 1/6 and 2/7 to beat Angel if he won every time. So I'm on track for that. And then for Rene, obviously I have to do a bit better because he was only 10 points behind me before this round. So I'll have to do the maths again, just to have a goal in mind for a position if he wins, for example. But yeah, I think Mugello should be fun, and Suzuka should be really good as a final decider. So, but yeah, hoping to close out with a win in the championship, and with the teams as well. We had some good points today added on. So yeah.
Oh, indeed. And, well, good mention in regards to Rene Rosler, who was fourth today, so there might be a bit of a mathematical recalculation, like you say, and we're working it out. It's going to take a bit of time, but you are still in a good position. Mugello is next. I mean, you're looking forward to Mugello, but what's your attraction to the Italian circuit?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually driven it loads lately, but I think it could be fairly fun for GTE racing. And I saw that they were doing the IndyCar Pro Series there. So obviously the lines are going to be different, but that seems to be fairly good racing as well. So yeah, I'll have to do some more officials practice and a bit of like league session practice as well. But it should be good fighting, I think.
Oh, well, we look forward to some good fighting from yourself at Mugello in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Ben, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, shout out to you, of course, for the broadcasting. I'll watch the race back later on, maybe tomorrow. And obviously for Angel for all like the good fights towards the end, and for Rene, obviously having a close championship fight and like fighting at the start was fun. So yeah, I think that's it. And my teammates, of course, for helping out with strategy and cheering me on, and themselves. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Ben, we'll leave it there. You've been absolutely brilliant today, no doubt about it. I mean, some would say missing out on the win to their rival, it would be a down day. But the fact you've done the maths and you've been able to keep Angel Adonis honest all day today has shown just how strong your championship campaign has become. Still work to do, however, in the battle with Rene Rosler, but we'll see what you can do at Mugello in a week's time. But until then, save that second place, enjoy it, and we'll see you next round.
Yeah, see you next round. Cheers.
So, here and there from Benjamin Massey, ladies and gents, and I do love the way he's really, I'd say in a way, very relaxed about things, but also compartmentalised exactly what he needs to do. Knowing that for the remaining 3 rounds, a 6th and 2/7 would be enough to beat Angel Adonis and force him mathematically out of the equation. The second place today definitely has massively helped in making sure that's becoming a certainty. Then, considering the fact he's finished ahead of his main and closest rival, Rene Rosler, who he alluded to there, well, things have worked out there comfortably with Rosler's 4th place. They've now got to do some more maths, but everything is looking up for Inox Motorsport, both at a team level and also at Benjamin Massey's individual Drivers' Championship level. He's looking forward to Mugello, suspects it's going to be a good circuit, but he's got to get some practice in. But I'll tell you one thing, practice makes perfect, and when Benjamin Massey puts his mind to it, he definitely shows that he's always on the podium in terms of pace, if not chasing that win, and we will see what he can do in Italy. But ladies and gents, in terms of seeing what we can do for interviews, oh boy, you've got a good one coming up, because we're very shortly going to be back for our second interview of the night. We're heading to the elite class. And so as we make our way to the elite class, we now are going to be bringing you an interview with our runner-up from today, because joining me up now in the interview room is none other than Tim Perry. I mean, Tim, we spoke to you last round. I know we had a good chat there about your frustrations at Le Mans, but I mean, we couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk to somebody who today took Mirko Bortolotti the distance and almost managed to make him defeated. How close was it for you out there?
Oh, it was so close, and it was so intense, and it's got to be one of the best races I think I've ever done. It was epic, absolutely epic. Enjoyed it completely from start to finish. Everything kind of went really well, but not quite well enough. But it was brilliant. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, brilliant to hear the love you've had for the racing today. And let's dissect it a little bit. Qualifying firstly, 5th overall, 4th in class. A bit of an interesting qualifying session because your main rival qualified 2 tenths faster than everybody else. And in Sunday, you found yourself really hemmed into a group of 6 or 7 drivers, all no more than a tenth to a tenth and a half apart from each other. It must have felt a bit odd to think you've done really well to get close, but everyone else is so close as well.
Yeah, Interlagos is always very close. Yeah, 10th makes a huge difference here, and my optimal would have got me second, but no one ever gets out their optimal, so it was just one of those things. Really, things could have panned out a little bit better, but the Corvette was never going to be the one that pace car. I think the others were definitely slightly faster, but in terms of the race, the Vet was always going to be good. So qualifying wasn't the be-all and end-all, and obviously with the start I got as well, it kind of nullified that anyway, and it was handy actually in the end being on the inside. I think I was 4th, and then I got pipped right at the end to 5th, which actually helped me hugely.
Well, hugely helped you in the end, but of course, going into the race, 90 minutes of racing, longer than our previous race rounds. There's always a bigger strategic element, and it seems as though this one was always going to come down to the tyre management as it was the fuel saving. And what point did you go into tyre and fuel saving mode? Was it straight away, or was there a sort of cut-off period where you said, after X number of minutes, right, we're now switching track?
No, you've always got to play it by ear. You've always got to see what the situation is. So I ended up behind Martin Stattmann, and at the start the pace was quite good, so I was happy just behind him, really. And I thought Mirko was going to pull away at that point, and I would see what I could do behind Martin. And as things unfolded, Mirko didn't really pull much of a gap. I wasn't sure if he was like saving really hard, or if the Ferrari was just struggling, or if he knew that he would have to save the tyres in the Ferrari from an early point. So you're never quite sure what was going on. And then Martin started to struggle a little bit as obviously the tyres started to wear. And so I thought now was probably the time to do it. So I then made the move on him to try and then jump up to Mirko. And obviously I didn't want to leave it too long, because if there's too much of a gap to Mirko, it makes it harder to bridge it. So it was always kind of, do I go now? Do I go later? Because I knew I had to pace with Martin after a few laps. So it was just a case of just biding my time and working out when the best time to do it was.
Oh, I see, and we're working out constantly when was the right time. And in terms of the pit stops, of course, we did see a few drivers go a bit early, not just in the elite class, but also in the Pro and Inter classes. They seem to be caught out by the fact they actually forced themselves onto a 2-stop strategy at the end by underfueling the pit lane. But for yourself and also Bortolotti, you all went just a little bit longer than the halfway point of the race. Was that by design?
You always just try and save a bit of fuel, especially, I mean, I could in the draft. So it was quite easy for me to save the fuel behind him. The draft was very strong here. I thought, obviously, even in the midfield section, it felt like you're being sucked along quite a lot. So I was able to save quite a lot and save tyres behind him. I was actually quite surprised how easy it was, really, because we were still pulling away from people behind, which kind of shocked me, really. The sort of pace we were going, I thought others would start to catch up, but that obviously wasn't the case. And so yeah, it was interesting. It was, yeah, kind of the pace was almost shocking, really.
Oh, a bit of a shocking pace, but in the end, after the pit stop, we saw you jump ahead of Bortolotti by 2 seconds. That was the lead you carved out for yourself after the pit stop. And then the final 40 minutes was all about holding on. I mean, were you surprised to see yourself not just ahead, but ahead by 2 seconds in the first place?
Not really, because I knew I was saving more than him. He was trying to save, definitely, but I was saving more, I could tell. So I nearly even had an extra lap ahead of what I did. I was literally by 0.1 of a lap away, but I was the last kind of 5-6 laps of the stint. I was trying desperately to get the extra one. I couldn't quite do it. And then we had like a train of 3 blue flag cars in front of us. So, I mean, my intention was to pit when he pitted. Then obviously he's gone to pit, and then 2 of the lapped cars kind of dive to left last minute as well, because they wanted to get out of our battle, which is quite ironically. And then he ended up kind of stuck behind them. So at that point, I knew, right, I've got one really fast lap now in basically clean air, and his pit entry is going to be compromised a bit by the lapped cars, because lapped cars never quite have that same pit entry speed as what we can have. So I knew I was in a good chance. Plus, I knew that I'd save probably more fuel and could probably jump him anyway. So yeah, I did think I was going to come out in front.
Well, fair play. It played out as expected, and then for the remainder of the race, we saw you hold on initially, but the gap did come down, and then the fighting really kicked off. He did get ahead of you initially, but you tried to come back. I mean, were there places where you felt as though you were stronger towards the end versus his Ferrari, whereas he might have been stronger than you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think because the draft was so strong, it just felt if you were behind, like when I was behind him, I felt like I had loads of pace on him, and when I was in front of him, it like I had to mirror drive, and it felt like he had loads more pace on me, like almost everywhere. So it was interesting. I was trying to, I don't know what that fast left is before Junsao, but I was always trying to save some tires through there, and he was just gunning it every time. He could really go through there very fast, whereas I always had to just save a bit because the car was moving. So then I couldn't quite get close enough through Junsao. So it was kind of that was the major pace difference, I suppose. But I think my best chance was into turn 3, and obviously that is where I made the major move for it, but didn't quite come off. And then after that, we had some lap traffic, which kind of split us apart right towards the end, which was a shame because I'd kind of backed off a bit to save the tyres, cool them down to really go at him the last 2 laps, but never really had a chance in the end.
Well, it was unfortunate you didn't quite get that last chance. It would have been interesting to see, but still a second place, and knowing that you did go the full distance with the Ferrari driver today and almost take him down. But there's still more 2 rounds to go, and on top of that now, this does mean with this result, you'll be moving more towards 3rd place in the Elite Championship. What can we expect from you at Mugello?
I don't really know, to be honest. I've only ever driven it in Super Formula cars, so I think the track was all right, but I don't know, to be honest. And the same with Suzuka. I think the vet should be pretty strong at Suzuka, but it's obviously better in the 90-minute races. So I think this was the chance to beat Mirko. I won't be able to do it the next 2 rounds, and it's a case of how I stack up against Martin and the others. So I mean, we'll see. That's a great thing with this championship. Apart from Mirko, it's anyone's race. Anyone could get that 2nd place. So yeah, very interested to see.
Oh, 100%, and we'll be interested to see whether you can make sure you get that 2nd place next time out in Italy. But just as we get ready to let you go, Tim, well, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, just a big shout out to SRI for being on the league. Been desperate for a GT league for so long, and obviously it's come along, and it's we had the AGTC last season with the GT3s, but I mean this is even better, and it's just absolutely fantastic to be able to race these cars as we have been, and obviously against the DTM driver as well. It's just absolutely phenomenal. It's just brilliant. Absolutely love it.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we're very happy to hear that you love it, and we love seeing you out there giving it your all. You almost took victory today. It wasn't quite enough, but it's a return to the podium, a well-earned 2nd place. And Tim, with that, we'll leave it there. Congratulations. Have a great rest of your evening, a lovely weekend, and we will see you at Mugello.
Thank you very much.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Tim Perry, and you can hear it in his voice, that enjoyment, also perhaps a just small tinge of what could have been if he hadn't found that traffic right towards the very end when he was resurging for one final attack versus Mirko Bortolotti, but also the fact that today he's taken on the DTM star and almost managed to snatch the winner away, albeit He knew it was going to come to him on strategy here at the Interlagos circuit. It was core about having the stronger tyre life and also being able to save the fuel. But in the end, he also knew he was going to have to battle in the remaining 37 or so minutes. And it was back and forth. He knew where he was stronger. He also knew where he was vulnerable. But in the end, it didn't quite work. May have been his greatest chance of it, but also keep in mind that right now the door is wide open in that battle for second place in the races. And got ahead of Martin Stattmann today and closing on him in the Elite Championship. And it's all going to come down to 2 rounds as to who's going to be in that top 5. And Tim Perry is definitely targeting not just being in the top 5, but in the top 3, if not the runner-up this season, behind Mirko Bortolotti. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, of course, well, we've got more interviews to come. Next up, well, we might just be going back to the Pro class. And so, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Pro class we go. And now joining me in the interview is going to be none other than first-time interviewee of Flavian Tiefri. Because he does join me now. Good evening to you, Flavian. What a race from yourself today. You look like you had a lot of fun out there for that 3rd place.
Good evening, Paul. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun tonight. It was hard work behind the wheel, but I had a smile on my face during a lot of the race. So, you know, even now, I think you can hear it somehow, my smile. So I was just chatting with the guys afterwards and sharing our experiences, and looks like it's been a good race all around.
Oh, indeed. You've had an absolutely brilliant round yourself. And talking a little bit about qualifying, I can hear the smile with your voice. 10th overall, 5th in class. It looked very close in the Pro class today. Were you happy with your qualifying performance?
Yes, I was very happy, to be fair. I did not practice a whole lot the quali setup. I tend to focus more on the race tints and stable setups. And I tried a setup that was a bit more on the oversteery side tonight, and it definitely paid off. I was quite happy to make it near the top 10, so I think that put me in a good position for the rest of the race, really. And as you say, the pace is super close in Pro. There are some guys that are even, let's say, looking towards the overall podium, especially Angel. I have to give him a shout out. I don't know how he does it. He must be on another planet, basically. Really, really quick guy. And also Benjamin in the Pro tier. The competition is really, really intense. And you have to give everything if you want to get a good result.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, in terms of giving it everything, one of the stories of today could be that the 3rd place in the Pro class naturally started to come towards you, particularly after some difficulties for your rivals such as Matthias Pettinger and Rene Rössler, but also the fact that you spent the majority of the race fighting with Mariko Jordanovski and Albert Parish. I mean, 2 elite drivers, but it looked like you two were fighting over points rather than fighting over positions.
Definitely. You know, at some point in the race, when I passed Rene and some other guys during the pit stop phase, I could feel Albert knew I wasn't about to give up or just, you know, drive behind him quietly. And it looks like he was up for it. And, you know, Pro, Elite, Inter driver, at some point it doesn't matter, man. I'm just racing the guys around me. Obviously, sometimes you have to be sensible, but at our skill level, I think we can race without, you know, putting ourselves in too much trouble. So that was good. We both enjoyed it, and it was definitely, I think, more fun to drive this way rather than, you know, just settle for last half an hour, basically.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you guys were absolutely professional out there, swapping places back and forth, fighting hard. And I do have to ask, obviously, you started this season in the Interclass. You were promoted to the Pro Class early on. But since that promotion, things haven't quite gone right necessarily, let's say. But you still kept in it, and now things are going right as a Brazil. What's kept you in a positive spirit? Because you sound so happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just doing what I love, which is racing. Definitely enjoy the competition, and I want to say thank you to all the staff and yourself for, you know, providing us with the right situations to perform and have fun. For sure, earlier in the season, maybe the first race looked really promising, even though I started from the pits. But I think I managed to climb back to a respectable mid-table finish. So there was a lot of early promise. And, you know, for me, I come back to iRacing. It's been a couple of years, basically, and especially in these cars. So, you know, there are some tracks I had to learn during the season, and that also can explain the fluctuating performance relative to the competition. I can say that. But also, you know, I'm a racer. I'm a competitor. I like to win. I have fun fighting with the others, having tough but fair battles. I think it's something you have to work towards, you know. So even if the results don't come, you just have to focus on the feeling, you know, on the feeling of the car, on the feeling of the race. You have to keep improving, and you know, that's just how I see it. I'm a very positive guy in real life, trying to always improve myself. So I think that me and SimRacing are a match made in heaven, basically.
Oh, that's brilliant. I think we can all take a bit of inspiration from your positivity, no doubt about it. And I think everyone right now hearing that's going to definitely think that that attitude is what we love to see on the grid. And with that in mind, of course, and with the variety of circuits, next up, we do have none other than the Mugello circuit. What's going to be a target there?
Well, Paul, to be fair, I'm not going to participate. I'm going to visit my brother in Portugal, so that's overseas for me. I will be back for the final round, though. So, you know, because I missed a couple rounds, also in Road America, the previous endurance round, I had a DNF. So I'm not looking to, let's say, a certain position in the standings. As always, I will try to give everything for my next race and get the best result possible. And have a big send-off for the last race of the season.
Oh, fantastic. Well, firstly, we'll miss seeing you on the grid at Mugello, but when it's travelling to see your brother abroad, we can definitely understand that. And, well, the grid will be a little bit quieter without you, but we'll see you at that Suzuka circuit. And, well, and just before we do let you go, one question, a bit of a different question, given you've already perhaps given a shout-out or two. Is there anybody else actually you would like to give a shout-out beyond the organisers? Any friends or family tuning in right now that you'd like to give a mention to?
Yes, definitely. I want to give a shout-out to Denis Bajretarevic. He's a good friend of mine. And also, you know, he managed to convince me to go back to iRacing after spending some time in other simulations. And also John Baker and all the team at SCAF Gaming. This is a great bunch of guys. We're having fun and having many love and banter, which is also important in life. So big shout out to these guys.
Oh, fantastic. And the last question I do have to ask you, if we were to run a season 2, now this is no promise there's a season 2, as I wink, albeit there's no webcam at the moment, but I'm winking very regularly at the moment, let's say. If there's a circuit we could put on the calendar, what would it be?
Sebring, 100%.
Oh, fair play. I like it. It's a very direct answer, straight to the point, Sebring. Well, with that, Flavien, it has been an absolute pleasure having you in the interview room, and I do hope you have a wonderful trip to Portugal in a week's time. But congratulations today with the third place finish, back on the podium once again, which is what we love to see. We'll see you at Suzuka, but until then, my friend, have a lovely time away.
Thanks, Paul. Pleasure was shared. Have a good evening, everyone.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, how could you have not a more positive interview than that with the ID5 competition driver of Flavien Tieffry? I mean, the spirit of the man is absolutely incredible. I actually feel so happy that we've interviewed him for the first time this season, and hearing that about the fact, bringing the positivity that this series really is the starting point of his resumption of race on iRacing after a couple of years out, and he's learning every step of the way, and the fact that when results haven't gone his way, he hasn't got down, he's seen the positives, he's turned things around, And he'd say he's absolutely enjoyed it. The fact that in the end, it's not about whether you're battling with a pro or battling with an elite driver. If the driver around you wants to go, well, let's have some fun out there. But race at a level, which you can, where you're racing that respect to of each other and getting stuck into the fight. And that's what we saw today from our Porsche driver there, as we do see the pictures of him tailing the group of cars, including none other than what was Marinko Jornowski and also Albert Frisch and Christian Ablasser. And in the end, absolutely loving every moment of it. And well, we've loved every moment of hearing from him there and the positivity and seeing him at Suzuka. We look forward to seeing what he can bring to the table in the season finale. And can he end the season on another podium? Could he even perhaps end the season the ultimate high of a win? Well, I can tell you one thing, he will be doing his best to try and do so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more final interview to come. Who's it going to be with? Well, for this one, we're going to the Interclass. That we can tell you, but who's it going to be with? You're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up our interviews today by speaking to your Inter winner, because joining me now in the interview room, after a long time away from the top step of the podium, it's his third win of the season. It's John Ludbrook. Good evening to you, John. This must feel special to be back on the podium after such a long wait and back with a win. Oh, if you're with us, John, we can't quite hear it at the moment. I don't know if something's gone wrong on your end of your microphone. Oh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Perfect. Yeah, well, what a race. What a race, Paul. That was a tough one.
Oh, 100%. I mean, in terms of how you started off the day, you didn't make it look too tough in qualifying, taking pole position in the end by a relative margin, albeit saying that, towards the very end of it, suddenly, it was both Logan Timberlake and Kevin Swift hot on your heels, the three of you separated by 700ths, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, it was very close. I hadn't had any time to practice. My teammate James, he sent me a screenshot of an official he did today, and there was a few lads in the official from the league, and I thought, all these people practicing. I said, haven't even had a single lap round here in the GTE. I've done a few in the GT3s, but never actually in the GTE. So when I jumped on straight after work, 7 o'clock was straight into the lobby, and I put a few laps in, and I was like, oh, it doesn't seem too bad. It felt slow, but it was all right, to be fair, and all I needed to do was replicate that in quali, which I managed to do. Yeah, it was a good result.
Oh, 100%, an absolutely great result for yourself. And with that limited practice, well, you definitely made every second work out. When we did go racing, in the early stage of the race, it did look quite crowded into turn one, as it's always going to be Interlagos. But in the chop and change there, a loss of the lead to Kevin Smith.
Yeah, the start in the right-hand lane, we had a bit of a check-up. I'm not sure what was going on. I think I lost two places, if not three, within the first couple of corners. But it's a 90-minute race, and I thought, well, let's keep at it. And I think Pinter overtook me on yellow at one point, but it was only a couple of laps, and I was back in front, so wasn't too bothered about that. Yeah, it was just the first laps are always going to be tough, especially around that turn one. So I was just needed to keep out of trouble, which I managed to do.
We steer clear of the danger, and in doing so, we gradually saw you start to make your way up through the order, and in the end, take the lead. Kevin Smith, of course, involved in a huge incident down the start-finish straight, which relegated him out of the chase of the win. And at that point, and it's really, it was your race to lose. I mean, were you thinking about that, or were you thinking, no, there's more places to be gained, I can keep going forward?
No, so as soon as I saw Kevin spin in front of me, there was a bit of me that I was. It's so sad to see someone's race end like that, but listen, I need those points. So once I was in first, and I knew that I had a bit of a gap to the people behind me, I had a tail of pro drivers that I was holding up quite a bit, not on purpose, but they were just I could see they were a lot quicker than me, but I had to create that distance between P2. And once I saw that it was sort of over 10 seconds, then I was like, right, let them pass, and then just try and save my tyres, because the tyres they felt so off, sort of even 45 minutes in.
And with the tyres feeding off, I mean, we did see quite a few inter-drives. There was this weird dynamic in the inter-class whereby yourself, Craig Tillotson and Andrew Fellows, of course your teammate who in the end brought home the 1-2 with you, you all opted to just run the single set of tyres where everybody else in Inter went to a second set out of those not blighted by an incident early on. Were you surprised at that?
Yeah, very much so. I didn't realise that so many people did take tyres. Brian sent me a message after and asked me if I took tyres, which I didn't, and I was surprised he managed to. He did take all 4. I think it was Robin, might have been Robin or Andrew. One of them pitted the lap before me, and they checked their percentage on the tyres, and I think their worst one was at 75%. So I thought, well, mine can't be much more than that because I've managed to sort of save them as much as I can. So I thought, well, 75%, they've got to be enough to keep to the end, even if I do lose a few seconds a lap. But even after the pits, I'm looking at my lap times and I'm still lapping sort of half a second quicker than some of the other drivers in Inter. So I was happy just to keep going on them.
All fair play. I mean, going with the tyres you had definitely seemed to be the right way forward. And as the race gradually wound down, I mean, getting closer and closer towards that finish and a first win in a long time inching closer, I presume you might be on the radio to Andrew at that point asking, where are you? Are we going to make it a 1-2?
Yeah, 100%. The team's championship is so close, and me and Andrew have been talking about it, and we just want to try and get sort of, well, we're in the trophies at the moment. We want to try and get higher, and I mean, it's so close. You've got Mirko, you've got Miguel up there. There's so many quick guys, and they're all in the classes above. So we've just got to try and hold on as best we can. But yeah, a 1-2 for us was absolutely fantastic.
Well, a brilliant 1-2. A huge injection of points coming your way into the Teams Championship that's looking so tight at the very top at the moment, and for the top 5 place in particular. 2 rounds remain then. Next up, Mugello. What can we expect from you and the team there?
Fingers crossed it's going to be another good result. We were chatting in the interview room earlier, and it's just, even with the other guys, I said it's just got to stay out of trouble now. I've managed to, both 90-minute races, I've come first. So the extra points are there. I've just got to try and stay out of trouble, keep in the top 5, which I think should be doable. I'm not a massive fan of Suzuka. Mugello's okay. So fingers crossed have a good result at Mugello, and it will leave me a nice comfort blanket for Suzuka.
All fair play, and well, hopefully things work out the way you want them to. But as we do get ready to let you go, firstly, a question to ask you. If we were to run a Season 2, not saying we are planning to, wink wink nudge nudge, what circuit would you love to see on the calendar?
Sebring.
Have you spoken to Flavien Tieffri before this interview? Because that's exactly what he said straight away. No hesitation.
Did he really? No, I haven't spoken to him, but no, Sebring's such a great track. I love it, to be fair, in the GT3s. I've never done it in the GTE, so it'd be interesting to do.
Oh, fair play. Well, Sebring getting 2 votes there. Definitely something for us to potentially not think about in the not admin room after not today. But with regards to that, John, the last question, of course, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Yourself, Paul, for such a great broadcast. It's a bit late for me to watch it back now, but I will be watching it back tomorrow. The whole of the GPX team, we have such a good laugh. I'll give a shout out to my son, Luke. He won't be watching now, but he will probably watch it back with me tomorrow, which I'm sure he'll appreciate the shout out. And a few of the guys at work that I've sent the link to. I'm not sure if they managed to jump into the chat, but yeah, big shout out to everyone. Great result.
Well, John, we need to say a big thank you to you for joining me in the interview room. A win today, a great win, and one that moves you forward in your championship campaign. It's still wide open in the teams and the Drivers' Championship, and there's plenty more to be done in the final 2 rounds. We'll see you at Mugello to see what you can perform there. But until then, have a great rest of your evening, and well done once again on taking your 3rd win of the season.
Thanks, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview, John Ludderbrook, and really breaking it down succinctly there, talking firstly about the amount of practice he had and the fact that he used the time available, plus the data he was able to get from his teammates, racing in officials earlier in the week, to see where the pace was going to be and what the targets were. But very quickly find himself moving forward in pace, and in qualifying, very happy to take that pole position in class. And when it was only 700 separated himself, Timberlake and Smith will then raise an eyebrow how close it was going to be. Of course, talking about there, a bit of a slow up or a stack up of cars on the right-hand side of the grid going into the formation lap start, albeit I suspect that might be investigated by the shoulds after racing should it get reported. And it did cost him some places, but he didn't give up. He kept chasing. Unfortunate, as he mentioned there, that Kevin Smith did get caught up in that major incident down the start-finish straight, which nobody wants to see a rival end up in. But they did open the door for Ludbrook, and after that, it was about holding on. But also talking about the fact that as soon as he had taken the lead and opened up that comfortable gap, the mode immediately moved into focusing on bringing home the win and not pushing too hard, protecting the car, and then finding out that it would be a 1-2 for him and his teammate Andrew Fellows, and won the team's championship there, the focus of the team. Right now, they are going up against the big boys in the pro and the elite classes, and GPX SimSport Xenon, they may be the underdogs, but they're definitely pumping in the points, and a Mugello, they may be able to do even more, as Ludbrook will need to do so if he wants to try and bring home that Drivers' Championship crown. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. A huge thank you to all of our drivers who interviewed with us. But who exactly did we speak to? Here's a quick recap. So we started off in the pro class with Benjamin Massey, your runner-up today in the class just behind Angel Ordonez, and we're so close between the two of them. Then we came to a very close battle between Tim Perry and Mirko Bortolotti, I believe Mirko Bortolotti. Two names there interchangeable on my brain today, it would seem. And the Altitude 3M esports driver of Perry there giving us a great recap of the story from his perspective. Then we came back to the pro class of Flavien Tieffry for ID4 competition, and he was on the third place spot of the podium as just a very positive driver, enjoying himself out there. And then we did come to your interclass winner, last but not least, John Ludbrook there for GPX SimSport Xenon, talking about the fact that once he was in control, he made sure not to make any mistakes and never let it go. And intriguingly there, both Tieffry and Ludbrook both said Sebring immediately when we said, what circuit would you like to see in a future season? I want to tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, if we do run a season 2, Sebring is definitely on that calendar right now. Otherwise, I think there might be a riot. But it's been a riot speaking to them all. Thank you to them all for their time this evening, and well done to all 4 of our drivers on their brilliant performances. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more how you can be potentially on the grid at SimRacing International, or at least join the community and everything in between, well, the first thing we definitely recommend is joining the official Discord. Invite link available at the bottom of the screen there, and that is the way to get involved and get yourself on the grid. And when you do so, you may be able to join the grid for one of our many ongoing series, including, of course, our Thursday GT3 Championship, currently coming towards the end of its 11th season. 2 splits on a Thursday evening, 120 drivers across those splits. Alternatively, we do have a Sunday GT3 series, the UK SimRacing Community Sunday GT3 series, running on a regular basis, currently in its 17th season. Alternatively, what you've been tuning into today on Friday evenings, the GTE Championship, our first season of it, by popular demand, we're running it, and well, we're absolutely loving it, no doubt about it. Or if you're looking for something far more casual, perhaps you're new to the grid, or new to the league racing format, or perhaps you just want something a little bit more relaxed, well, of course, we do have our free to join practice league, which runs on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. There's never been a better time to be on the grid at SimRacing International, and we'd love to see you part of it. We'd also like to take a moment then to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carmate, More Than Technology and the GP2 Group, and we'd like to give a big shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us as a recommended community at SimRacing International. A huge thank you to them, and long may our relationship with them continue throughout 2026. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, 2 rounds remain. We've completed all of our endurance race rounds, and next time up, it'll be 60 minutes of racing at the Italian sweeping circuit of Mugello. That will be round number 9, and save the date in your diaries, because on Friday, the 27th of February, 2026, the story is this. In the elite class, now Mirko Bortolotti, with another win, will be expanding his championship lead. Can anybody stop him from taking 1 or 2 more wins and bringing it all home at Suzuka? Meanwhile, in the pro class, Angel Ordonez charging hard, but Benjamin Massey known was second place today. He's almost ruled the Enosis esports driver out of the fight for the title, and now it's coming closer and closer between Massey and Rene Russler. And in the interclass, Pinto Levente with a retirement today, losing critical points. John Ludbrook is on the charge. It's between those two and everyone else following on through. Who is going to take command and charge in Italy? We'll find out then next week. But until then, you've been tuned in to the SimRacing International GTE Championship. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a brilliant weekend, ladies and gentlemen. And most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.